Good evening and welcome to Municipal Votes 2003 on Rogers Television. I'm Brian Coughlin. It's been just over a month since the voters of Mississauga and Brampton were at the polls to elect a new provincial government. And now the voters have returned to the polls to elect their municipal representatives for mayor, regional and city councillors, as well as school trustees. The polls opened this morning at 10 a.m. and have now just closed. The story in Mississauga is a familiar one, as Mayor Hazel McCallion is expected to return for her 10th term at the helm of Canada's 6th largest city. In Brampton, incumbent Mayor Susan Fennell looks to win her second term, with Bill Cowie, a longtime Brampton resident and experienced councillor, looking to replace her. Brampton will also have a new look this time around, with just 5 seats each for both regional and city council. Mississauga will again be represented by 9 city councillors who also represent the region. We will be bringing you live, exclusive, and up-to-the-minute coverage of all the results as they become available. We will also bring you interviews with many of the candidates as well as the elected mayors from both Brampton and Mississauga. We start out tonight by going first to Brampton City Hall, where Brampton's politically speaking host Bob May is standing by. Bob?
Hi, Brian. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you? How are things in Brampton?
It's getting a little noisier here in the atrium at City Hall. Tonight we're going to be talking about the 5 city council seats up for grabs. We're also going to be talking about the 5 regional council seats up for grabs and the mayor's race, which could be warm or it could not be warm. We're not too sure how that's going to go. We're also going to talk to a lot of the main players here tonight. They'll be coming in. We'll be doing interviews with them, seeing how their campaigns went and seeing what they think of the results they're getting tonight. In our next segment, Brian, we're going to update the mayor's race and talk about Bill Cowie and Susan Fennell, where they come from, what they do, and how they expect to do tonight. So we'll be back in a few minutes. Now back to you at the desk.
Thanks, Bob. We're looking forward to Bob's reporting back tonight from both the Susan Fennell and Bill Cowie campaign headquarters. We now go live to Mississauga City Hall, where Sangeeta Iyer is standing by. Sangeeta?
Thanks, Brian. We have lots happening here at Mississauga City Hall. I'll be speaking with Hazel McCallion in just a little while. And throughout the evening, I'll be speaking with some of the candidates who are expected to drop in. So we'll have a lot of action coming from Mississauga City Hall. Back to you, Brian.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Continuing to bring you extensive coverage, we now go to Farah Nasser on our live eye. Farah?
Brian, at the Fennell camp, it's busy. Volunteer staff here just waiting by the phones anxiously for the first results to come in. Now, incumbent Susan Fennell hoping for her second term as the city's mayor, hoping to beat Bill Cowie, a veteran city councillor. Cowie and his crew will be at their campaign headquarters waiting for the polling results to come in, while Fennell and her supporting cast will be at the Mandarin restaurant that's just off the 410, having a party, doing the same thing. Now, we will be at both locations live, giving you updates throughout the evening. Brian?
Thanks, Farah. Farah Nasser at Susan Fennell's campaign headquarters in Brampton. Joining me tonight in the studio to provide in-depth analysis and help make sense of all that is happening on Municipal Votes 2003 are Brad Butt, host and producer of In Camera, right here on Rogers Television, and Maria Brito. Maria is the past president of the Brampton Board of Trade and adds Chief Business Ambassador and Business Person of the Year to her list of credits. I also want to mention, for those of you obviously watching at home, that on the screen the information will be coming up throughout the night, providing you with the ward or regional chair, as well as the mayoralty races, the candidates on the left-hand side of the screen, and eventually we will be seeing some numbers there reporting in the polls. And along the bottom, we're going to have up-to-date information. Right off the top, we're going to go to City Hall, Mississauga City Hall, and Sangeeta Iyer with Hazel McCallion.
They want.
We're going.
Can you tell them? Are we up?
Thank you, Brian. Here I am with Hazel McCallion, and just if
You can't.
and if you get re-elected, Hazel, what is your vision for the city of Mississauga?
Well, to continue the great way in which we've developed the city, good planning to the best of our ability, financial controls that will continue to keep us debt-free and yet provide all the services, give value for tax dollar, and to develop the waterfront, a garden on the banks of the Credit River, and to provide the facilities that are essential to a city of our size, and to make sure that people are well looked after.
What do you think of the council team, the team of council that you have right now? Do you think the Ward 5 councillor is going to be re-elected?
Yeah.
They're freaking out. They gotta move. You have to.
That's it, Brian. Back to you.
Thanks, Sangeeta. Sangeeta Iyer at Mississauga City Hall with Hazel McCallion, looking to be re-elected for her 10th term here. Certainly a story unto itself. I want to bring in the analysts right now if I can. Brad Butt, we'll start with you. We've just heard from the mayor what her vision is, of course, for her next term if she were to be re-elected. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think Mississaugans are quite pleased with the leadership they've had at Mississauga City Hall, right from the mayor right through the council. I think the mayor, the interesting thing about Hazel McCallion is she doesn't just rest on her laurels and say, well, you know, I've done a great job. She also says, I have a vision for the future. And I think she's laid out a number of things that she'd like to see happen, as well as managing growth properly and dealing with the fact that Mississauga is almost a totally built-out city now. And now we have a lot of the urban challenges that our neighbors to the east and Toronto have in managing a city and keeping taxes at a reasonable level and encouraging business to stay and grow in the city, as well as deal with all the issues that urban municipalities deal with. So I think the mayor has laid that out very well. I certainly expect her to get re-elected by a substantial majority of the vote tonight, and you know, we'll see how the evening progresses.
Okay, Brad, and very quickly, Maria, to bring you in, just give us a rundown on the mayoralty race in Brampton. We have a two-candidate race there.
That's right, and it's been a very interesting race. Susan Fennell, I suppose, having the experience on the job, has certainly set her plan and a vision for what she would like for the city of Brampton, so has a little bit of an advantage there. Bill Cowie's been a long-time veteran on council and brings forth some new vision as well. So I think it'll be a very interesting run.
Okay.
This time.
Well, we'll have to see what happens there, of course, this evening. We're going to go back to Brampton now, where we have standing by John Hutton, the incumbent in Wards 2 and 6 at this moment for Brampton City. Brampton, are you there?
Hi, Brian. We're here, and I've got City Councillor John Hutton here from this time Wards 2 and Ward 6. John has been famous for 18 years here in Brampton. It's actually his 7th trip to the polls. You've never lost, John, and how are you going to do tonight?
We're very cautiously optimistic. I've had so many people helping me and volunteers going door to door with me that I can't see how I can fail. It looks like a pretty good victory. I have 10 opponents running against me. They always say when you're an incumbent, the more the merrier. The more opponents, the better, but we'll see. We're just waiting here, very anxiously waiting for the results. So.
Tell me, John, does it feel any different the 7th time in compared to the 1st or the 2nd?
It feels a whole lot different. In the early days, I was able to go to every door, and if they weren't home, go back and keep going back until they were home and meet everyone personally. Now with Ward 2 and Ward 6, although I have tried to go to every door in both wards, it's been impossible to even get to every door. So I've had great helpers helping me, and we've been able to get our message out to the majority of the people. But I miss some of the small town bit, because I sure wish it was small enough that I could get to, even though I started the 2nd week in September, and we've been going strong ever since with a lot of help. But it's such a huge area with 22,000 homes to call on that it's almost impossible to get to every single door, although I wish I could. And I certainly plan to over the next 3 years. The ones I've missed, I certainly plan to visit. So.
Well, it's been a fun 18 years. I think you've had a lot of fun. You seem to enjoy your role as councillor. We're going to wish you the best of luck. We know the results are going to be coming in very, very soon. So, Brian, we're going to let you take it back to the desk.
Thanks, Bob. Bob May at Brampton City Hall, interviewing John Hutton, a gentleman who's been representing Ward 6 for many years, as we just heard, and the results should be coming in from there momentarily. Maria, Mr. Hutton, of course, has a wealth of experience in Brampton, seems to be on a roll here. Is it something that he can expect good results from tonight?
Well, he certainly has the largest number of people running against him. There's 11 people running in that ward. And, you know, that's a very interesting ward in that that's our western gateway, our Bram West, where we're expecting to get a lot of our prestige industrial and commercial and some new housing, prestige housing in there. So it's going to be a very, very interesting wards, now especially when they're amalgamated with 2 and 6. So they've got a big job on their hands. John, we've got another gentleman who's running, Brian Johnson, who's running against him as well, who's run before. So he's had some experience. But and Doug Willens, Ken Willens, one of our city mayors before, his son. And so he'll have some interesting feedback to see who's running against him.
Okay, it should be interesting. And we do want to get back to you, Maria, with some information on the wards and how they've merged this time around.
Sure.
We'll get to that. But right now, we'd like to go to an interview we have with Ward 2 incumbent Pat Mullen. She is one of 2 candidates running for the Ward 2 seat here in Mississauga. So we have Pat Mullen right now.
Thanks, Brian. I'm here at the home of Patricia Mullen, who's running for councillor for Ward 2. Patricia, can you tell me, if you are elected, what can the people of Mississauga expect to see?
Well, I guess they'll continue to see hard work, which I have been certainly known for over the last 18 years. I think we've got a lot of challenges ahead of us. It's not as easy as it was when we were developing and we had the development charges and the growth. We're maturing as a city, so the choices are going to be more difficult. And I guess dealing with the taxes and making sure that the services are maintained. So I think we have a lot of challenges ahead of us, and I think that's what I bring, is some experience to the job.
What's the greatest challenge that you hope to tackle head on?
I think maintaining the level of services, and if needed, to actually increase the services. I think we have to take a look at everything that we're offering now. There may be some tough choices. Some of those things may have to go, but indeed some of the people are saying we want an increase in service. So I guess if they're willing to pay for that, that's something that we'll have to take a look at. But I think it'll just be hard choices. It'll be partnering with the federal and provincial government, hopefully a whole new deal for Mississauga, and will benefit our taxpayers. We're hoping for the fuel tax. That will help us a great deal. So it's really trying to maintain the level of service that people are expecting.
What are some of the services that are being requested?
Sorry?
What are some services that are being requested?
That are being looked at? Oh, extra? Well, I think programming, especially in the recreation department, that came out at an all-candidates meeting. Certainly the basic services that we provide, road resurfacing, our infrastructure. I think that the deal that we've made with regards to the selling of water will help older communities in terms of creating that base for infrastructure, and that because we're not growing, because we don't have development charges, it will secure infrastructure for the future. So I think just the downloading that we've experienced over the last few years has been a real challenge for the city of Mississauga. So in my view, I'm hearing people saying, I want the same level of service, I want my roads done, I want my garbage picked up, and possibly an enhancement in service, especially in the recreational area.
Thank you so much. I wish you the best of luck. Well, that's it here from the home of Patricia Mullen. As you can see, friends and family continue to come in to support. And that's it. Back to you, Brian.
Great, thanks, Marissa. Marissa Zucchero there with Pat Mullen, Ward 2 incumbent. 2 candidates in that ward this time around. Scott Wilson also running in Ward 2. Brad, we'll bring you in at this point. We've already got numbers in for the Mississauga mayoralty race, it being 90% right now, the lead for Hazel McCallion. Comment on that.
Another disappointing night for Hazel. I'm sure she's really upset by that. But in all seriousness, I mean, let's face it, every time Hazel runs, she says the same thing. It's a referendum on my leadership. And as you know, she doesn't campaign, she doesn't spend any money, she doesn't raise any money. She says to the people of Mississauga every 3 years, if you believe I'm leading this council and this city on the right track, then vote for me. If you don't, and you believe someone else can do it better, then you go ahead and do that. So it's no surprise that, and I'm pretty sure we'd be suggesting that Mayor McCallion gets re-elected tonight and projecting that. That's no surprise at all.
Okay, so having touched on the mayor, now we know there are other candidates. She's got 4 other candidates, but at this point the numbers are not looking good for them. As far as the other seats are concerned, the councillor seats, the city seats, and the region seats, how are you expecting the results to come in tonight as far as the incumbents and what may happen there?
Well, I think in Mississauga it'll probably be a pretty quiet night politically. I certainly expect all of the incumbents to be re-elected, save and except Ward 5, of course, which is the interesting story tonight. 21 people running. Cliff Giles, the incumbent, who was stripped of his seat by council by being convicted of the various counts that he was convicted of, and is running again. What's the dynamic of all of that tonight? And that's going to be very interesting. But I think the other 8 wards, certainly Katie Mahoney was already acclaimed in Ward 8, so there's no race there. But the other wards, I'm pretty sure that the incumbents will get re-elected tonight. It would only be Ward 5, and 21 people, who knows?
Well, there's another whole story. We're going to save that story. We're going to go right now back up to Brampton, where Bina Pandya is standing by with Otar Alja from Brampton's Ward 3 and 4, the incumbent there. Bina?
We'll be getting some funding from a provincial level and from federal level. We already have a plan how to do it. So we submit the papers to the provincial government, and hopefully we will get a grant and we will get some funding from provincial level, and then we are forcing those plans as soon as possible to reduce the gridlock.
You also, in your campaign promises, saw the need to increase recreational facilities for both seniors and youth. Why do you feel that's important to your area?
Because the city of Brampton, it's growing a lot. We are behind the need of our seniors population. It's growing, and so that's why we need more seniors center and or recreation center where we can accommodate our seniors and our youth, because we don't want our youth to play on the streets. So that's why we want to have more programs from the city, and then we can provide those programs to the youth, and then all those youth, they can use it, and then seniors, they can use whenever they have a free time.
This campaign, how did you run it differently from your last one?
Because last one I was new, totally new. I was introducing myself in the politics, but this time I have a 3 years experience. So I worked hard than last year. And another thing is because last time it was only one ward, Ward 4, and this time Ward 3 and 4 combined. So it's double the population, it's double the area. So that's why it's different than, it's harder than last time. And another thing is, another incumbent is running against me. It's another challenge. So I hope I'll do good.
Thank you, Aftar.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's it, Brian, from Aftar Ojha's campaign headquarters at the City Centre Plaza in Brampton.
Thanks, Bina. Bina up in Brampton there with Ward 3 and 4 Brampton City Councillor incumbent Avtar Aujla getting some information from Brampton. As we know, right now the only information we have in Mississauga to really report is the mayoralty race. Hazel McCallion leading with 90% of the vote being reported at this point. Maria, I guess I'll go back to you and ask, we haven't got any information yet from Brampton as far as the mayoralty race is concerned. We may see some numbers up here any moment. What are your expectations, and what are the voters in Brampton? What was your sentiment as far as what might be happening early in the evening?
As far as the mayor's race is concerned?
Yeah, was it expected that Susan Fennell would jump out to a lead early, or was it going to be a closer race?
To be very honest with you, after the provincial election, you never say never. You never know. But Susan's a real people person, and she hit the ground running. Has a very strong campaign team, and very organized. And they were out canvassing, had flyers out, buttons, you name it, they were out. Bill got into the race a little bit later. I think lost a little bit of ground there, but also has a good team. Have them out canvassing, same thing, and good support as well. But the feeling is that, yeah, Susan most certainly would probably come ahead. So the numbers will tell as we go through the polls. Yeah.
Right. And briefly explain, as we go through the wards this evening, you'll notice that the numbers have been combined, 1 and 5, 2
yes.
and what is the reasoning for that?
Well, we downsized our council because, Mississauga with a population of 600 and change, you have 9 councillors. We had 17, so we've gone to 10 now. So we have 5 regional and 5 city. So we have 10 wards, so we've amalgamated. So wards 1 and 5, 2 and 6, 3 and 4, 7 and 8, and accordingly, so they will double up on the wards. And these are very large wards, so they're going to need to be full-time councillors or regional councillors now.
They've inherited a little bit more work, obviously,
Without a doubt.
with the increase
Without
in
a
size
doubt,
there. Just a bit of information for you. Eligible voters in Brampton number in at about 227,000, and in Mississauga considerably larger at 441,000. Early reports in from Brampton showing that Mayor Susan Fennell, incumbent mayor, is right now holding a lead of approximately 3,800 votes over Bill Cowie. We now are going to jump back to the Mississauga mayoral race, and candidate Masood Khan, who is standing by with Sangeeta Iyer at Mississauga City Hall. Sangeeta?
Thank you, Brian. Joining with me here is one of the mayoralty candidates, Masood Khan. Mr. Khan, as we have just seen the results, Hazel McCallion is leading the poll with 92% of the votes, and you are around 3%. How do you feel about this? It seems like you're losing the race.
Well, that's fine. When two people run, one has to lose, and this is nothing new for Hazel. She has been winning for the last 8 terms. She always gets in 90% sort of thing, and they say when you can't beat them, you join them. I have served Mississauga for 27 years. I'm going to go back and shake hands with her to say thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to run in this city. You are our mayor. I'm going to work with her. But I ran a good, clean campaign. I had a very hard-working people. We put out a good campaign, and I'm happy that at least I will finish as a runners-up, not at the end.
Some of the comments that you passed during the mayoralty race was had to do with, personal slangs and stuff like that. What do you have to say about that?
It wasn't personal slang. I was just saying that the politics has no retiring age, and I will still say that. And I always maintain this, that one person should not run forever. There should be a term, 2 terms, 3 terms, 4 terms. This way, you will not see the leadership come out. I mean, this Hazel McCallion has been a wonderful mayor. I always said it, but I think she should honorably retire to say, well, look, I had enough share of the leadership. I want some good qualified people to come forward. It may not be me, it could be somebody else, but she has to give a chance to other people to come forward and lead the city.
So what are your plans now then?
Oh, I would still continue serving the committees I've always served in Mississauga. I've always worked for the people of Mississauga, and I will run again 3 years later.
Great. Thank you so much. Congratulations for running the race. And back to you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Sangeeta Iyer at Mississauga City Hall with mayoralty candidate Masood Khan, as you heard, a Mississauga resident, long-term, and a real estate broker. Says he's proud of the campaign that he has run this time around. Of course, sitting right now with about 863 votes, as we last noted. So he's certainly got an insurmountable and impossible number to overcome with the incumbent mayor, Hazel McCallion. Right now we're going to go back up to Brampton, where Elaine Moore is standing by. She's the regional, she's sitting in for the regional seat for wards 1 and 5 in Brampton.
Thanks, Brian. I'm at the Lawn Bowling Club at Century Gardens with wards 1 and 5 regional councillor candidate Elaine Moore. Thanks for joining us, Elaine.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for being here to join in what's hopefully a celebration in wards 1 and 5 in Brampton.
Now, earlier you mentioned that there was a little confusion. Voters might be a little confused with the new setup. Can you please explain that?
Well, I'm a little bit concerned with having moved to the electronic voting, and as a result of that, downsizing the number of voting stations available to residents where they've traditionally voted at one location. Because of a consolidation, we'll have to travel a little bit farther or go into territory that might not be as familiar to them. So I'm a little bit concerned on the impact that might have for voter turnout in Brampton. But I'm optimistic that they're concerned enough about voting. They've taken the time to get in their cars and go to the voting stations, so they'll continue on to their destination to do that.
Now, the issue of gridlock is a big issue in the city of Brampton, and how do you propose to deal with that?
Well, I think there's no question. We heard at the doors that traffic gridlock was a huge issue in Brampton, and that's no surprise to Brampton City Councillors, where I've sat for the past 3 years. My response at the doors is very simply that we didn't get into this mess overnight, and we're not going to get out of this mess overnight. But I think certainly Brampton City Council has adopted a transportation and transit master plan that is a solid foundation towards building towards long-term solutions. I think the worst thing we could do for this community is to have short-term quick fixes that in the long term are not going to serve us well. So I think that certainly the gridlock is one issue, but I think driver behavior is another issue that hopefully, as I move to the regional position, and working closely with Peel Regional Police to look at initiatives for addressing driver behavior in our community. It's not just the volume, it's the speed and the manner in which our motorists are traveling through the city.
And another big issue in the city of Brampton is the hospital issue. What's your perspective on the P3, the public-private partnership?
Well, my perspective is very simply that Brampton needs a new hospital. And we need the new hospital and we need the old hospital refurbished. We need the beds that are available there. I've lived in Brampton since 1964. You don't need to tell me that we need a new hospital here. So I would certainly be a strong advocate for moving forward with that project. I think we're going to have to work closely with our new elected provincial representatives. They've certainly heard the message loud and clear, and in fact I think that they were elected on the basis that they would be advocates at the province for moving away from the P3 model as soon as and as quickly as they can in order for Brampton to have a hospital that is not controversial in nature, that is owned publicly.
And you're also an advocate of more money for the region of Peel, provincial spending. Please explain that.
Well, it's not more provincial spending. Currently, Peel region dollars to the tune of over $60 million are leaving the region of Peel to support social services and programs in Toronto and elsewhere in the GTA. Very clearly, we need those dollars here in Peel. We have the same types of issues and the same types of challenges and social problems here in the region of Peel that need to be addressed. And we can use that $66 million that's currently leaving, and we will spend it well, we will spend it wisely, and we'll meet the expectations of our residents here at home to meet the service levels that they require and that they deserve.
And there you have it from the Lawn Bowling Club at Century Gardens, Brian. Back to you in the studio, Brian.
Adele Halim in Brampton with Elaine Moore, one of three candidates running for Wards 1 and 5 regional, expected to win. The numbers already coming in with her maintaining a strong lead in that ward. Right now we're going to also go back up to Brampton. We have Bob May standing by in another ward for regional with John Sproviera. Bob.
Thanks, Brian. We're here with John Sprovieri up at the atrium here at the City Hall. John, congratulations, 77% of the vote tonight.
Oh, it's coming in excellent results.
This is your sixth time around. Is it any different now than it was, say, your first or second time around?
Well, actually, I feel a lot easier, at least this time around. I feel very comfortable. I feel confident. I felt very confident in this campaign.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're switching over from city council to regional council. What kind of a difference is that going to make for you?
Well, it gives me a broader scope to deal with issues in my ward. As you know, in the past, Paul Palashi was looking after three wards, 2, 6, and 10, right. And that was a demanding role for Paul. Now with wards 9 and 10, what used to be 10, has its own regional councillor allocated. Mm-hmm. I think we could get a lot more focus on the problems.
All right, well, I can see a smile on your lips tonight. I'm just going to congratulate you and say welcome back to council, and we'll see you on Politically Speaking.
Oh, I'd be glad to be there. Thank you.
All right, Brian, back to you.
Thanks, Bob. Bob May in Brampton with Ward 9 and 10 regional candidate John Sproviera. I'm sure I've got that pronunciation right. Thanks, Maria. And we've just heard from two of the candidates in Brampton running for regional chair. Mm-hmm. Two big leads at this point. We heard 77% in Wards 9 and 10. Wow, how is that unfolding at this point in the evening? As expected?
Yeah, very much so. Elaine is a strong counselor, a good thinker. You know, she really embraces the public process and wants the input in. And I think that's really got to the constituents that she has supported, and it's showing in the numbers. John Sprovieri, you know, he's been 15 years a city councillor, moving up to regional. He has a good handle on his wards, and very good support, John, there. You know, he's a good door knocker. He gets out, functions with the people very well. He wants to raise the profile of the cities. You know, Brampton seems to have this low-end housing situation, and it really bugs John. So he's going to be hell-bent on getting to move that along. So very strong candidates in their areas, and do a good job.
Right. Yeah. And now this time around in Brampton, a lot of the voters, of course, are seeing a different, not only maybe a different ballot, but a different makeup of things. Do you think there's any confusion at all with the changes, or do you think it's pretty much
Well, I think this
self-explanatory?
time around, and if it's based on my mother's approach, and my mother's pretty in tune to the stuff, but I think the confusion of the amalgamation of the wards and knowing that they have to go out and actually vote for 4 people, regional and mayor and trustee and whatnot, and they've got so many names and so many signs thrown at them. So, it's a bit confusing. I think once we get to the poll, it's a little bit easier because it's sort of jotted down and we can follow the process. But I think there will be some confusion. We have a few, a little bit with the language barriers as well, and getting out there. We've got a very large ethnic mix, so we have to start to view that very seriously as well as when we get to the polls,
Right.
issues like that. But I think most certainly there is a little bit of confusion because we have so many people running in so many wards. It's very confusing for people.
Okay, now, and of course, we want to touch on confusion in the Mississauga wards as well, Brad, but Ward 5, of course, now with 21 candidates on the ballot. What's your take on that? There's another story to that whole ward as well.
Well, I guess what I'm seeing in the results so far is it looks like Eve Adams, who's certainly a political newcomer, looks like she's garnering as much as 23% of the vote thus far. In a 21-horse race, she is probably going to win tonight. I mean, that's a very early spread in this race, and I see that 2 or 3 of the other leading candidates that I thought would be a lot higher, Roy Willis, longtime community activist, the incumbent Cliff Giles, despite his difficulties legally, has a core constituency in that ward that I thought might pull a bit more. Rick Falco, who's the separate school trustee there at the present time, is running, but isn't quite edging her out. Now, I don't know what kind of campaign she ran that made her come apart from the rest, but clearly when you have that many people running, if you can go to your core constituency in the area you live in and you get your vote out in a 21-horse race, if you get 20% of the vote, you're the councillor. So very interesting to see. It's still too early to call one way or the other. I think all the other races are pretty much called in Mississauga. Done, finished, over. The incumbents have won again. But we'll have to see what happens in Ward 5. It's still a horse race, but it looks like Eve Adams is doing extremely well.
Okay, well, in mentioning of Ward 5 and the 21 candidate race there, we are now going to go live to Mississauga City Hall where Sangeeta Iyer is standing by with Roy Willis for an interview. Sangeeta.
Thank you, Brian. Right with me here is Roy Willis, Ward 5 candidate, and this is the 8th time he's running, and it doesn't seem like the race is running in his favor. Roy, first of all, tell us, how do you feel about this?
Well, not too happy and not too pleased, but the people have spoken, and they will choose their candidate, and whoever is the candidate, they're going to have a tough job up there, and I hope they keep their promises.
And apparently it was 6,000 votes versus 300 votes right now for candidate Cliff Giles. How do you feel about that?
Great. I feel that he should have never entered this race, never been in this race, because to me he's embarrassed Ward 5 and he's embarrassed the people of the city of Mississauga, and it's good to see him defeated. The justice at the polls prevailed, and he's gone, and I hope we never see him again.
But you had something to do with his charges, right?
No, not his charges. It was the audit which I brought forward. But on his charges, it was him that received the money. I didn't tell anybody for him to take the money. It was him that took it, and now he is going to pay for his crimes, and he may go to jail. And there's a lot of people hoping that he does go to jail.
And what about you now?
I never say never. My wife said to me, Roy, this is it. And I said, well, yeah, maybe it's time to go fishing. And then just call it quits. And I wish all the people of Ward 5 all the best. And whoever the candidate is in there, you better work hard, because if you don't, I may come at you again.
Great. Thank you so much, Roy.
Thank you.
And all the best. And back to you, Brian.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Sangeeta Iyer with the Ward 5 candidate Roy Willis at Mississauga City Hall. We now are going to go live back up to Brampton. We're standing by is the president of the Brampton Board of Trade, Michael Collins. Hi, Michael. How are you this evening?
Good evening. How are you?
Good. Very good, thanks. Give us a bit of a sense of what's happening in Brampton with the vote and what your expectations were as far as how you were going to get the business vote out this time around.
Well, I think for the most part, it's going pretty much as planned. There's a few races that are tight as we expected them to be, but for the most part, I mean, it's pretty much as everybody had predicted they would be. So it seems to be a reasonably good turnout, and hopefully the business community is out there doing their thing.
Well, here we are. Our studio right now is in Mississauga. The race for seats here, not quite as interesting as one might think it is in Brampton. What are the surprises, or are there any surprises that you have seen this evening, and a comment on the mayoralty race as well?
On the mayoralty race, it's again, I mean, Susan was the incumbent, and she was pretty popular with the citizens of Brampton. So I don't think there was really much of a surprise there. Bill's a long-time serving councillor and well respected, so I expected him to show very well. But the mayor is an incumbent, and they usually have the edge. So there really is no surprise.
And what is the future for you at the Brampton Board of Trade, the vision as far as where Brampton is now heading as a result of what's happening tonight?
Well, one of the things all of the candidates seem to be preaching is the need for the transportation and gridlock and the congestion to be looked after. So hopefully that the new team that's elected is going to work towards that. And I think that's obviously the number one concern that business and the citizens of Brampton have. So hopefully that'll be addressed pretty quickly.
Great. Thank you very much. Michael Collins, the president of the Brampton Board of Trade in Brampton. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Well, there we go. We heard some of the information about the businesses in Brampton. I'm sure the issues are similar in Mississauga. We've touched on a lot of candidate names and numbers, but when it comes to the issues here in this municipal race or this election, what are we hearing the same themes over and over? That being congestion, traffic, recycling, those types of things.
Without a doubt, especially in Brampton, because we're bursting at the seams. Our population is expected to double within the next decade, and our roads have to be widened. Traffic, people are sitting in traffic for more than 40 minutes just trying to get home off roads, and using residential roads to make little shortcuts back and forth. So most certainly those are big issues. Safety is becoming a big issue because those are all growing pains. When we start to grow with the population. So these are probably similar issues that Mississauga probably faced last time around. So it's similar issues.
And what are you hearing, Brad, in and around Mississauga?
Well, I mean, you'll always hear the same stories, and it's interesting to listen to politicians, whether they're brand new at it or they've run for the 10th time and are getting reelected. It seems to be the same thing. You want to keep a lid on taxes, yet you want to do all these wonderful things and services. And you also expect the senior levels of government to, fly in and drop potfuls of money into municipalities to get all these bigger issues dealt with. And the fact of the matter is, and I've been at this a long time, and I've both been a politician and a commentator, and it seems to be, if you rewind the tape, a lot of the same stories all the time, which is business complaining, residents complaining, and then re-electing all the same people that to some degree have been part of the problem and to some degree part of the solution, depending on where they come from. So we're going to have to see what happens. We have a unique opportunity, I would say, in the last 10 years, which now we have a brand new provincial government that made a lot of promises. We have, after this weekend, a brand new Prime Minister of the country who's made a lot of promises to cities. Let's see if the new Prime Minister, the new Premier, and the two new mayors, the same mayors, but the mayors of Mississauga and Brampton, can sit down with these senior levels of government and actually cut a deal. Because they couldn't do it when Bob Rae was Premier. They couldn't do it when Mike Harris and Ernie Eves were Premier. And let's see if they can cut it today or tomorrow. So they've got huge challenges ahead and huge opportunities. If the next 3 years are squandered as an opportunity for the mayors of Mississauga and Brampton to get money and support out of the federal and provincial government, they can't get it in the next 3 years, they'll never get it.
I agree.
Because the new Premier and the new Prime Minister have promised it.
And Maria, Brampton obviously is a city that's been always vying to incorporate new business and new economic activity in the area. Where do they see themselves placed as a result of the change in government at a provincial level and now with what may be happening municipally?
Well, we're at a huge crossroad now, Brian, because, we're a gateway, really. The new airport is expanding. We've got the land. We've got the room. We've got good tax rates. So we're just open for business right now. And, as a member actually on the Economic Development Committee, I mean, we've we've got a very strong team that gets out there and really sells the city. The mayor herself, is a real salesperson for the city. She does her bit in that way, and so we're open for business. We're ready and going because, as Brad said, they're maxed out. So we're going to benefit from that. So we're going to be the Mississauga of the North. We're going to benefit from all of that because we have the land, and like I said, we have the good tax rates as well. And
the other big challenge, I don't know if this is the time to do it or not if you're breaking to something, but the other big challenge is both Mississauga Council and Brampton Council are on record as saying they want the end of the region appeal government, that they think as independent entities they can do the job better, they can deliver services better to their taxpayers as independent cities.
And Mayor McCallion is vying for that by 2006.
And I assume that that Premier McGuinty has heard that message, and the new Minister of Municipal Affairs, John Gerritsen, has heard that message, that both these councils are saying, we don't want you to force anything on us, this is our will. This is what we want, and this is the way we want our municipalities to move forward in the next number of years. So it's going to be very interesting to see whether or not Mayor Fennell and Mayor McCallion are going to be successful in getting the will of their councils, and I assume their electorate, to ending the region appeal by the 2006 election. So that'll be a very interesting thing to see if the two mayors are able to convince the new provincial government to deliver on the thing that they say their constituents want.
Well, it may be a little bit too early to predict that they will be the two mayors in this case, but Susan Fennell, the incumbent, is definitely opening up a considerable lead in Brampton right now with just over 25,000 votes, and City Councillor Bill Cowie sitting at 14,200 votes. So is this a lead that one might not expect Bill Cowie to be able to overcome?
Without a doubt, yeah. That's quite
the writing is on the wall.
That's quite a tough gap to go through right now.
The team has been assembled, obviously, in this case.
Yeah, one of the things I'm noticing in a couple of the ward races, and we want to get to that, and Ward 5 in Mississauga is still too close to tell, but there's two interesting ward races in Mississauga. In Ward 3, incumbent councillor Maya Prentice is being challenged by Peter Ferreira. Peter was a former separate school trustee, current chairman of the Mississauga Library Board. The interesting thing is Maya Prentice will still win that. But he has won a lot of votes. I think the last time your screen was up, it was over 2,500 votes. That's surprising in a ward where Maya Prentice is considered a very, very strong incumbent. For someone else to win 2,000 votes and she wins, say, 35, to win by 1,500 votes and you're such a strong incumbent, I wonder if there's a little disgruntlement in the Ward 3 community. The other race is Ward 7. Where Nando Yanika will get re-elected there tonight. But again, Bill Munden, who ran him 3 years ago, has run him again. And again, the gap is only, he's going to win 2,100, 2,400 votes tonight. The incumbent's only going to win, say, 38 or 3,900 votes. What does that say about those communities? When you look at some of the other wards, and the one incumbent is like 3,000 votes, and the next incumbent is 280 votes. Like huge discrepancies. Exactly. What does that say about some of the issues going on in those communities that maybe those incumbents aren't addressing because the gap between them and the person in second place isn't as great as in the other wards? Interesting story, I think.
And we will continue to focus around the wards, where there's a number of other ones that we haven't touched on yet. But we do want to go to Mississauga City Hall, Ward 8 in Mississauga. Katie Mahoney has been acclaimed in that ward. She's been in municipal politics for the past 12 years and is certainly a well-known name in the city of Mississauga. With her now is Sangeeta Iyer. Sangeeta?
Thank you, Brian. Congratulations, Katie, first of all.
Thank you very much.
And how does that feel?
It feels really, really good. I feel that the folks of Ward 8 have the confidence in me, and we'll continue to work hard for the next 3 years throughout the next term.
Fantastic. Now, this is your 5th term into your Ward 5 as a councillor.
Ward 8.
Ward 8. And what are your plans this term?
Well, I think we have some challenges ahead of us. We have with infill development within the ward. Ward 8 is a pretty well-established community. Not a lot of growth other than the area west of Winston Churchill, south of Eglinton. But within the rest of the ward, there are some infill issues, particularly the Glen Erin Inn proposal. There is a development for a rather large number of units at the Glen Erin Inn, and there's a great deal of concern in the community, and we're working together with the community to see what we can do to stop the development going ahead.
That's wonderful. And the other thing you were working on is towards building a fully accessible playground.
Yes, that is very important to me. I sit on the Accessibility Advisory Committee in the City of Mississauga, and we have a long way to go to provide fully accessible facilities for all of our community. And we do have a wonderful playground. It's in Ward 4, which is an accessible playground for children with all the various disabilities, and also for parents and grandparents who are not as able to go and play with their children at a playground. So I'm looking to build a fully accessible playground in Ward 8, particularly in the Tom Chater Park, where we've just acquired a parcel of land. It's an ideal location, and I'm looking for the community to come and get involved in that. I've got a lot of enthusiasm from the community right now, and I'm going to be going out to look for some fundraising and work with the city and with the community to achieve something that everyone in the community can take part in and be part of.
That's fantastic. Congratulations again. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here this evening.
Okay, great. That's it from here. Back to you, Brian.
Great. Thanks, Sangeeta, at Mississauga City Hall with Katie Mahoney, Ward 8 claimed in that seat. And she was there discussing some of her plans as to what she may be doing in that ward for the next 3 years. We also have a number of other races in Mississauga that we haven't touched on. Brad, quickly, let's just go around some of the Ward 1,
Sure.
Ward 4, and Ward 9 are three that I know we haven't mentioned.
Well, in Ward 1, the incumbent councillor, Carmen Corbison, is, I mean, the last thing we saw on the screen, I mean, like way out in front. Carmen, I think, is the typical type of councillor you want. You call her with an issue, she gets it solved, end of story, works hard, you know, fiscally responsible, is a team player at Mississauga City Hall. Her ratepayers associations work very well with her. I mean, it's someone who clearly deserves to get re-elected. Ward 4, Frank Dale, same thing. You know, not a lot of pomp and circumstance from Frank Dale. You know, he's not going to run down here Ontario Street and Burnhamthorpe and with a big flag saying I'm here. But again, he gets the job done. Good at the local constituency stuff, and a good team player with the Hazel McCallion Council. And he's certainly way ahead. I don't think the other. I was actually told a story. The person running against him didn't even campaign.
Right.
So there wasn't even anything going on there at all. So
last notice he had a very large lead there.
You know, so I mean,
Ward 4.
certainly, you know, a long shot. Ward 6 is interesting. I mean, this is the first election campaign for George Carlson as an incumbent, longtime school trustee, good longtime community activist, longtime resident of Streetsville, and you know, a few candidates have come forward, and they've done a lot better than I thought, quite frankly. Again, a ward where maybe there's some issues the local councillor has to look at and deal with. Ward 9, we're just past it on the screen now with Pat Sato, again, a councillor who's been there for a considerable period of time. Looks like she's way out in front, works very hard with her constituency and her ratepayers associations, and is a very good constituency person. So no surprise that she would be as far out in front as she is. So, you know, those races are not a big surprise. We expected very healthy margins for those councillors, and you know, I guess we'll see what happens.
Close.
Great. Okay, Brad. Brad, giving us an update there on the goings-on in Mississauga and a number of the different wards. Of course, big leads right now are happening in Wards 1, Wards 4, and Wards 9. Definitely Pat Sato in Ward 9 with a big lead as well. Mayor Hazel McCallion right now sitting with 91% of the vote with 172 of 274 polls in. So we know that of course, is over. And we have at City Hall now with us, we just spoke to Katie Mahoney. She is the Ward 8 acclaimed representative there. And with Sangeeta now is her husband, Mississauga West MP Steve Mahoney. Sangeeta?
Thank you, Brian. Joining me here is our Federal Minister of Housing, Steve Mahoney. Steve, what do you think about the race so far?
Well, I think the citizens of Mississauga are showing real confidence in the leadership here at City Hall. They've returned the mayor, which is no surprise to anybody, but with the resounding number, well over 91%, They've returned virtually all of the councillors. My wife was acclaimed, which is great to see for her and the job that she has done over the past really 12 years. But all of the other councillors, with the exception, of course, in Ward 5, have been returned by all the numbers I've seen. It's a vote of confidence in City Hall.
And what do you think about the way things are going in Ward 5 right now?
Well, the good news is that the former councillor has only received something like 300 votes, and we're going to have a new councillor in Ward 5. That obviously is important with all of the difficulties that Mr. Giles has had with the law, etc. And it's a fairly close race, although I think Eve Adams looks like she's on top at the moment, and she will likely hold on. But you never know until the last poll is closed.
And as a Minister of Housing, what do you hope to do for the region of Peel when it comes to affordable housing?
Well, I've been working closely with Peel Region. I'm a former board member and president of Peel Nonprofit, which is now called Peel Living, and I have very close relations with them. We're looking at developing 500 new affordable housing agreements with the province of Ontario. The good news is we have a new government at Queen's Park who are prepared to take up the agreement that we signed with the former government and match the federal dollars. We're going to see affordable housing built not only in Peel Region but right across Canada. I'm very excited about it.
How much money is being invested into this?
Well, Ontario alone has $245 million from the federal government to be matched by the provincial government for close to $500 million in affordable housing. Peel Region will get a huge chunk of that. The federal government's commitment across the country is $1 billion, again to be matched by all the provinces to generate $2 billion and build 40,000 affordable housing units. We're back in the housing business, and I'm delighted to be the minister responsible for that.
Wonderful. That's it from here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And that's back to you, Brian.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Sangeeta Iyer with Steve Mahoney, Mississauga West MP, just regaining his own seat there just over a month ago, October 2nd, in the provincial election. I'm sure he's very pleased about that. We now go back to Brampton, where standing by is John Cutrozola. He's the president of Inzola Construction. Hi, John. Thanks for joining us this evening.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me here.
John, as far as the race is concerned in Brampton, the mayoral race, it appears though Susan Fennell is definitely in front and going to win that. What is your take on the development in the Queen Street corridor and how that may affect that development as a result of Susan Fennell being re-elected?
Well, this is in keeping with Susan's agenda. I think it's time now that she implements it for the city of Brampton. The vision is her vision, and as all I understand, since I know her, having taken office, her agenda has been to raise the bar for Brampton and build a greater city, a great center, a dynamic core, and that, I know, it's her dream, and I think this is a confirmation of her mandate to achieve that. This is a time to implement the agenda.
Well, John, and of course these things being implemented, you had mentioned a lot of the things happening in Brampton, the growth. Where do you see it going, and what kind of vision do you see for the future of Brampton as far as growth is concerned?
Brampton has to, while maintaining some growth to the suburbs, Brampton is at the crucial crossroad of how to make a city as a first-class, world-class city. And we can achieve that by continuing to sprawl without a great deal of control. We have to think of a vision that carries through us for the next 20 years in a way to achieving a population of probably more than 600,000 people. It takes a lot of hard decisions and a gutsy decision for the next 5-10 years in order to achieve that goal, the vision of a greater city. And building the city core as a dynamic place is the #1 issue.
And John, you're definitely there in Brampton playing a big role in that growth. Another question to you, you have another event or an event that you'd like to mention coming up this Friday.
Yes, as a part of my trying in the process of getting where I just mentioned we should go, I'm trying to take as much as time I can to help out along that way. And one of those endeavors is next Saturday, where I'm performing and produced a concert, a classic performance at the Heritage Theatre, which is hosts performers of international fame, and it's going to be a great event. The concert will end up here at the atrium of City Hall, where my art is now on display and is available for viewer for the next months. And we're going to end up the evening with the reception here in the atrium of City Hall. It's going to be a gala night and a great evening.
Well, John, that sounds like it is going to be a very exciting night for you there in Brampton coming up, and we'd like to thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me here, and thank you to all viewers. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, Maria, we've just heard from a prominent Brampton business person, again going over some of the growth issues in Brampton. He's thrown out the number that, you know, the potential is there for 600,000 people in Brampton at some point. What is the feeling as far as we've now seen the wards diminish in size basically in half. What is the feeling for how they're going to be able to accommodate that growth within council?
Well, what's happened recently is that they've really had to put a little bit of a halt on some of that new redevelopment, especially in residential, because we were just going great guns over the summer, and as a result, the roads and all of the infrastructure were just overtaxed. So I think we're just going to have to get a very good master plan, a good smart growth plan, and evaluate it and implement it, you know, in accordance to how we can handle it as far as the services and everything that are involved to make it move a little more smoothly. Okay. So the growth is, you know, like we're expecting that to double in the next decade or so, and that's a huge volume of people.
It is, and I mean, that seems to be a common theme around the GTA. Sure. We've touched on the Mississauga race, of course, with Mayor Hazel McCallion and now Susan Fennell. Brad, I'm going to bring you in, just some numbers in. You've been trying to keep an eye on the big picture as well in the city of Toronto. David Miller holding a lead right now, and it appears as though he is going to win that race in Toronto over John Tory. Barbara Hall a distant third in that race. What's your feeling for the changes that may be happening in the city?
Well, you know, in Toronto, that's probably good and bad depending on where you sit. I think the biggest challenge that David Miller is going to have, should he wind up being successful tonight, and certainly the results are showing that, is he going to be able to work with the other two levels of government? Or is he going to be an NDP mayor for the city of Toronto? And if that's what he's going to be for 3 years, I think he'll be sorely disappointed. If he can come to the table, like other mayors are talking about, and be middle of the road, middle grounded, and be a mayor for all of Toronto in negotiating with the federal and provincial governments on issues that I think all the candidates talked about a lot in the municipal election in Toronto, the question's going to be, can he do it or can he not do it? Can he move to the center and be a mayor for quote-unquote all of the people? That's a big if. And that'll be his challenge over the next 3 years, to prove he can do it and deliver for the people of Toronto. Because I've always said, as a resident of Mississauga, if Toronto thrives and Toronto does well, we all do well. If Toronto sinks, we all go down. So let's hope Mayor Miller is able to deliver, is able to come to the center, and is able to be a mayor for all the people of Toronto. And I'm sure Mayor McCallion and Mayor Fennell would appreciate a mayor of Toronto that can do that. Okay, and in a moment we will get Maria's reaction on how that may affect the interaction in Brampton. But right now we want to go to Mississauga City Hall, where another mayoralty race is over, and Hazel McCallion is there standing by with Sangeeta Iyer. Sangeeta?
Thank you, Brian. Right with me here is Mayor Hazel McCallion. Congratulations. How do you feel right now?
Oh, I feel very good, very proud to have the great support of the citizens of Mississauga to continue to serve them because it gives me great pride and honor to serve the people of Mississauga. So they've given me a big win tonight, and I'll just carry on tomorrow.
Great. Now, do you see the same council members come and work with you again, including Ward 5?
I don't follow your question.
Do you see the same team of council members come and work with you?
I assume from the election tonight that the 8 are re-elected. Yeah.
Well, how do you feel about Ward 5 situation?
Well, I don't know. I don't know who's winning in Ward 5. Obviously, there's going to be a new councillor on Ward 5, and that new councillor will have to join the team, because it is a team approach, and make their contribution like all the councillors have made. That's why they've been re-elected.
Great. Now, Mississauga is Canada's 6th largest city with around 650,000 people living here. There are 16,000 new residents moving into the city each year, and that means more construction. And apparently construction exceeded by $1.7 million in 2001, which is great for the economy. But how are we going to balance the green space?
It's 1.7 billion, not million. How are we going to? We have a lot of green space. We have close to 7,000 acres of green land. We have all the land along the Credit River. We have the waterfront. We're blessed with a lot of green land in spite of all the development that has occurred. We have woodlots. We spend a lot of money, taxpayers' money, buying woodlots and parkland. So I'll tell you, we have that's why the response is so great. The people appreciate. We have the wonderful parks, Jack Darling Park we have Lake Promenade Park. We have a beautiful waterfront with bike trails and pedestrian paths.
But as the population continues to grow, you think you're going to keep up with that? You're going to be able to keep up with that?
Well, our policy guarantees that.
Okay, now another one of your policies is that you want to provide the best possible service, even if that means you have to make some kind of tax increase. Can people expect that at all during this term?
We have predicted that the taxes will go up somewhere between 2 to 3.5% for the next 10 years, because as a city matures and we have all the facilities in place, the roads, the community centers, the fire halls, the arenas, etc., then the operating costs increase. When a city matures, obviously their taxes increase because of the operating.
And last but not the least, you're 82 years young and getting younger. How do you manage to stay so vibrant and energetic?
Well, I've been blessed with good health. The good Lord has been good to me. And I enjoy the job, and I think if you stay active mentally and physically, then you stay in good health. And I've been blessed with good health, and full of energy to do the job and excited about doing the job. It's really a joy and a pleasure to serve the people of Mississauga. I really enjoy it.
Wonderful. Congratulations again. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good evening.
That's it from here. Brian, back to you.
Well, Sangeeta, thank you, and I'm glad that Mayor Hazle McCallion enjoys her job because she's been at it a long time. And a quote here said that, by Hazle McCallion, said that she looks forward to the challenges of the job every day. And that obviously coming through again this time around for Hazle McCallion. Brad, just a quick rundown on the Mississauga situation. It seems like most of the wards are pretty much spoken for at this point, including Ward 5.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much done. I mean, all the incumbents have been re-elected. Of course, Ward 8, Councillor Mahoney was acclaimed. All the other incumbents are in. And
Ward 4, Frank Dale, of course, is
yeah, and I think it's pretty safe to say that Eve Adams, it looks like, will be the new councillor of Ward 5. Ran a very hard campaign. Good member of the community from what I read about her and what I saw about her. And I thought she actually gave, I know with Cable 10, you give the candidates a little 60-second spot, and I watched some of it last week, and I don't live in Ward 5, but I was curious because of 21 people running, and I actually thought she spoke very well, and she spoke about a new vision for Ward 5, and she didn't spend a lot of time talking about the Cliff Giles stuff. She talked about where I would take the ward and how I want to be a team player. Let's hope that's what her hallmark is over the next 3 years as the ward councillor in Ward 5. There's a lot of healing to do up there,
right.
And a lot of bridge building, and it's a very diverse ward. So I wish her all the best. I think she'll be a good councillor. I hope she will be. Look forward to interviewing her on Rogers Community TV from time to time. But I think she'll do well.
Okay. Well, from Mississauga, we're going to go back to Brampton. We're standing by is Bob May at Brampton City Hall. Bob, hi, are you there?
Hi, Brian. I'm here. We talked earlier tonight about the downsizing of City Council here in Brampton and the Regional Council, and we knew there were incumbents going to head tonight, and we were going to lose some very, very good people. And when it's all said and done, a lot of the incumbents were re-elected. However, there are some that have fallen by the wayside, and we're going to mention them now because these people over the last 3, 6, 9, some of them 12 years have done some fabulous work up here in Brampton. They just happen to get caught in the numbers tonight. For example, Dick Metzak has done tremendous work up here in Brampton. He's falling to Gail Miles tonight. Another one who's falling tonight, Avtar Adjila, a lady who is absolutely the most graceful lady I've ever met. I had her on my show. I think she's absolutely wonderful. And I hope she doesn't let this setback to Bob Callahan get her down, because she deserves to be at City Hall. She was a tremendous councillor. Also, Bill Cowie. Bill Cowie, unfortunately, couldn't get the votes behind him that he needed tonight. He's got 36%. Susan's got 63%. It's all over, said and done. Bill, have a good 3 years off, because I know Bill Cowie, he's going to be back, and he's been very, very good for the city of Brampton as well. There's also 4 other people, Brian, that we should mention tonight who did invaluable service for the city of Brampton, and they chose not to run this time. And we just want to wish them bon voyage. It's Rhoda Bagley, Lorna Bissell, Peter Richards, and of course our new MPP for Brampton Central, Linda Jeffrey. These people did tremendous work over their years at City Hall, and they should all be congratulated. We knew, unfortunately, there was going to be some members who were going to fall by the wayside tonight. They all did their best. I don't think any of them should be disappointed. And you know what? I can see them coming back really strong in the next 3 years. So we've got one riding up here, Brian, that is not finished yet, and we're going to come back and wrap it up in about 15 or 20 minutes. So I'm going to send it back to you, Brian.
Okay, thanks very much, Bob May, giving us the rundown on what's happening in Brampton tonight. Municipal votes 2003 starting to look like it's taking shape. Maria, coming back to the question of Brampton and how it's all shaping up with, of course, the new change for mayor in Toronto as well. Do you see any integration there or anything that will help or take away from Brampton?
In some ways, basically, Toronto, no matter what happens to Toronto, it always affects us here in Mississauga or in Brampton. There are certain issues, for instance, for us, we're looking at the expansion of this airport, and we're looking at transit to and fro. It'll get us from Brampton to the airport to Toronto, because a lot of our constituents still work in the city of Toronto. So, GO transit issues and various issues like that are crucial to us to have a view at. So, cooperation is most certainly in the forefront. I know Susan and Hazel get along relatively well, so they can coordinate their efforts, but we are certainly going to need the new mayor of Toronto to be on board to assist us in these issues. And traffic is probably going to be the one big issue that's going to be at the forefront here.
Okay, and having heard from Bill there, we've pretty much got most of the information in from Brampton. Anything that you'd like to add to that?
Well, what Bob May said too, it looks like with the numbers coming in, we will lose a few of our councillors who have worked very, very hard, sat on many committees, and I've sat on many committees with them. They've offered a lot of input. Avtar, Dick, and even Bill Cowie, he sat as the chair of the economic development, and they've worked very hard. It will be unfortunate to see them go, but I hope they will stay on the committees and help to build this, as our growth starts to expand, and we will certainly need their experience at the table.
Right. Now, as far as Mississauga is concerned, Brad, any other comments as far as, you've suggested that this time around it wasn't as much of a race as it may have been in the past. How does that change for the person now that's facing the next 3 years?
Well, quite frankly, as long as Hazel McCallion, I think, leads the council in Mississauga, there's always going to be a certain approach to the way government is handled in Mississauga. The mayor talked earlier about the team approach, and I've sat through Brampton council meetings, and I know they're very raucous. Mississauga council meetings are not that raucous. I'm not quite sure why that is, whether it is indeed the leadership of the mayor or whether it's just the makeup of the council. But I think people who have run for council, even when they've been brand new councillors, George Carlson was a brand new councillor. Cliff Giles recently was, the election before last was a brand new councillor. The other incumbents have been around for a number of years. Even new councillors that come on board take that team approach in Mississauga. So I think they sit down with Hazel McCallion very early and say, how can we work together? And the mayor sits down with them to do that. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of policy differences over the next 3 years with Mississauga City Council. I think as long as Mayor McCallion is at the helm, it's pretty much business as usual. And I think that's what people voted for tonight in Mississauga. The status quo for them. A month ago when we were here provincial, it was choose change, choose change. In Mississauga tonight, it's all about they like the status quo, they like the way the city's run, they want it to continue to run that way.
Okay, and we're going to now take you back up to Brampton. We're standing by is Susan DeMarco. She's the regional, ran for and is the incumbent for the regional chair in Wards 3 and 4. And we'll go to Brampton.
Hi, Brian. It's Bob back at Brampton City Hall, and I've got Susan DeMarco, the winner in Regional Council 3 and 4. A very tough fight, or a tough campaign against a very, very high-heeled and a very, very well-liked businessman here in Brampton, John Sanderson.
Yes, a very nice man and a very good campaign. I do have to say that all the people in this city, I am just so thrilled that people do participate. And that's what's important. We're so fortunate to have the process we do and to have wonderful people who participate in that process. Not just the candidates, but all the volunteers and the hours and hours of time and that they've spent on behalf of us all.
You've got your whole family here with you tonight. Oh, yes. You've all come in and you're all jumping around having a good time. The kids are very, very happy for Mom. You've been in Wards 3 and 4 now for a while. Of course, now you're amalgamated. The vision of Wards 3 and 4, it's a downtown area type area, which is a lot different from me interviewing John Hutton, who was out in, as they say, out in the sticks in Wards 2 and 6. What's your vision for Wards 3 and 4?
Well, someone said to me a couple of days ago, a vibrant city is a livable city. To make it the best it can be. There's corners that have maybe had a little bit of neglect that we can see what we can do to make those better. Things like the urban forest and the environment. We have 2 watersheds running through this area. Both the Metro Toronto Conservation Authority and the Credit Valley Conservation Authority have wonderful valleys. Reforesting those, making it as wonderful a place as it is with the people that live here.
Now, you work well with Mayor Susan Fennell, and of course Susan's back in for another 3 years. I think you're probably happy about that. The council basically is going to be the same set of people again, with one exception in City Wards 8 and 9, of course, or 9 and 10, which is going right down to the wire. We're waiting for that last poll to come in. There's only 35 votes difference. So that's going to be the right down to the last vote. Do you see any difference in city and regional council, being that it's smaller now? Will it be more workable, or will it be more difficult?
It will be different. I hesitate to say exactly how that will evolve. It will be interesting. We have huge challenges ahead of us. And we will work to do the best we can to make the city as wonderful as the people that live in it.
Now, when do you get back to work here?
I will be back, actually, my mother passed away in the middle of the campaign, so I'm actually going to spend the next 3 or 4 days with my sisters, and next Monday I'll be back.
So you're back at work and hard at it. Well, I want to congratulate you very, very much, Susan. You always run an honest campaign. I'm looking forward to having you back on Politically Speaking, because you're always an honored guest when you come in. You always have some great ideas. Brian, that's what a winner looks like here in Brampton tonight, and we're going to send it back to the desk.
Great, thanks, Bob. Bob in Brampton City Hall there with Susan DeMarco, of course, the winner for Wards 3 and 4. I guess the wards now pretty much are spoken for in Brampton. Have you noticed any? You've been following, Maria, some of the numbers there. Are there any races that have developed throughout the evening, or was it ever close in any of the wards?
One of the ones that really surprises me is Regional 3 and 4. I'm sorry, it's regional 7 and 8, Ward 7 and 8 with Dick Metzak and Gail Miles. You know, both the very seasoned councillors. I thought honestly it would be a tough race, but Gail seems to be way out ahead. So I guess the electorate has spoken, and she's got her vote out, which is good. 3 and 4 again. Susan also had a tough race with John Sanderson. Very well-heeled veteran in the city, born and raised, large family, businessman. And that was a very interesting campaign to watch. A really nice, clean campaign.
Maria, just to note quickly here, we've already got Brampton's Ward 9 and 10, 17 of 18 polls in, a very close race there.
Yeah. City Council, that was the only wards that did not have an incumbent, so we'll have a new face to council, and welcome Vicky. Yeah.
And Maria, as far as you're concerned, I mean, you've certainly got a long history in Brampton. How has this race been, or this municipal election, been different than the other ones that you've seen?
Wow. You know, in all the years I've lived in the city, I have never seen so many new names, so much interest, which is good. Which is very good, because we're starting to see the new face of Brampton evolve and come to the surface. I think it's very good. And we see the strengths and the experience of those that have already been there that will carry on. But it's also nice, like in Vicky's situation, that we have some new faces to council that can offer a new, fresh approach, because we are changing at rapid growth rates. And I think it's going to be a very interesting city as it evolves over the next few years. Because, like I said, even the ethnic face of Brampton is changing, and it's a very interesting change. Mm-hmm. I think it's something we can look forward to, some great restaurants.
Well, there you go. Good restaurants is a key. It's very important.
That's right.
And Brad, in Mississauga, Mayor McCallion, of course, is taken on for another 3 years. Where and when does this concept of her continuing to get in, obviously, in such great numbers, would people at this point start to say, will she run again? Is it too far away?
I'm
it's
sure.
a typical question every year.
I'm sure she gets that. I'm sure the Toronto media are all over her tonight at Mississauga City Hall, where she's, obviously camping out tonight, watching the results come in. And I'm sure that's the first question they're asking. Congratulations, Mayor, by the way. Are we going to see you again in 2006? I think Mayor McCallion's philosophy is quite simple. If her health is there, and she still has the desire to do the job and serve the people, I will not be surprised if we're sitting here 3 years from now declaring Hazel McCallion the mayor again. Now, she may decide differently. I mean, obviously, I think she takes it election by election, and the issues change, and the issues she has to deal with changes. But, I mean, I will not be surprised if she's at it again.
Anything is possible at this point, obviously, for Mayor McCallion.
I'd never count out Hazel. I would never take that bet.
That's very true. and in Brampton, Maria, for example, are there anybody, or is there anybody right now? Susan Fennell obviously garnering the vote this time around. She seems to have a pretty good hold on the city and what's happening up there, and is obviously showing promise in her vision for what's going on in Brampton.
Without a doubt. But I just think, next time around, just having a look at the reams of papers and names and bios that I studied over the weekend because of the new faces, I think the next run may very well be a tough haul, because, again, we'll have some new faces, and again, representing the various ethnic aspects of the region. And she may have a tough run next time. You never know.
You never know. Getting back to Mississauga briefly, I just noticed on the screen that, as you see, Ward 6 incumbent George Carlson's declared winner, and Ward 7 Nando Inika is leading. Also in Ward 3, it has not been declared at this point. Ward 8 has been acclaimed, and Patricia Mullen in Ward 2 has been declared the winner. So, Brad, what do you take on the outstanding wards that haven't been declared winner at this point?
Well, I mean, obviously, it certainly seems, I didn't follow the Ward 3 race all that closely, but it certainly seems that Peter Ferreira ran a very strong campaign in Ward 3, and there's obviously people in Ward 3 that are either attracted to him as a candidate or felt that the incumbent councillor, Maya Prentice, should have been replaced. I mean, it's surprising that he has been that strong in that ward, where I expected the incumbent, Maya Prentice, to be way out in front. For them to be within 600 or 700 votes of each other, for an incumbent who's been there, I think my apprentice has been there since 1985, is just like unreal. I'm really shocked it's that close. The dynamics of why that is, I mean, I guess the stories will be told, but that might say something about what's going on in Ward 3. There may be some issues there that need to be addressed, and maybe that's, you know, by being that close, maybe it's a wake-up call for the incumbent councillor that there's some issues there that she needs to be addressing, because obviously there's some unrest in the ward when a very popular, long-standing incumbent is challenged by somebody that is not a sitting politician and does that well.
And as far as the numbers are concerned, Brad, I mean, the mayor winning, being re-elected with 91% of the vote, that was pretty much a given. What do we get this time around as far as voter turnout? Are you seeing anything in the numbers coming on the heels of the provincial election? Is that usually a positive sign for the voters having been through the process just beforehand, or is it usually more difficult to get voters out? As a result.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I think I said when we did the color commentary in the provincial election, I said, you know, a higher voter turnout means you turf a government out. Although it was a lower voter turnout in the provincial election and they turfed a government out. So what I used to think was correct, I think is maybe out the window now. I think politics is in a real turmoil right now. I think it's very, very difficult to understand where the average voter is coming from, what issues are important to them, how the media affects them. I do think this fall there has been the sense of choose change, but at the same time it's been choose safe change, and sometimes you don't have safe change. I think provincially people felt Dalton McGuinty was safe change. In Mississauga, I think when you look at the 4 people that ran against Hazel McCallion, to vote for them, is that a safe change? I think most people would say no, those candidates were not a safe change, although Mississaugans may have wanted some change. It wasn't a safe change. So I think there are some differences between provincial and municipal, some parallels, but I think the key thing is that in Mississauga, people feel they're getting a government that listens to them, that responds to their interests, that keep taxes at a reasonable level, that invest in their community. And at this stage in the history of Mississauga, the status quo seems to be the choose change, the safe change they want.
Okay. There's Brad Butt, and you can see him on in camera giving you more in-depth analysis on many other issues as well. Right now we'd like to go to Adel Halim. He's standing by with Dick Metzak. He's the Brampton councillor, and we are going to go by right now with Adel.
Candidate Dick Metzak. Thanks for joining us, Dick.
How are you today?
We're good.
Good.
And the early results are that Gail, you're behind right now. What do you think happened? What do you think went wrong with your campaign?
I don't think anything went wrong with my campaign. I think we ran a very, very credible campaign. I think with the downsizing of council from 17 members to 11, I think there was some confusion out there. You know, we all worked hard. My campaign team worked hard. It wasn't exactly the cleanest campaign, and there was, you know, some animosity, whatever. But you know what? That's all behind us, and I wish whoever is the regional councillor for Ward 7-8 the best of luck.
What do you mean by the animosity and the unclean campaign?
Well, you know, there were some accusations made about various things that our camp was supposed to have done, which we had no control over. We didn't do certain things, and you know, consequently, I think maybe there was some sort of a backlash, whatever. That something that I got blamed for that I didn't do.
Now, with the provincial election just a month ago, do you think voter fatigue had anything to do with tonight's result?
You know, it's hard to say. When you look at the turnout, I haven't seen the exact percentage and numbers and so on. It's possible. And I think on the horizon you have another federal election coming up very, very soon. So it's quite possible that, you know, it could have been on the voters' minds. And don't forget now, we're only talking October 2nd to November the 10th. So it's only a few short weeks.
So now what do you have planned for your future?
Well, there are a number of things I have planned. You know, I have my family and I have things that I've kind of wanted to do. There's a lot of options open to me for the future.
Do you plan on staying in politics?
I haven't made up my mind on that yet. You know, I've had a great career. We've had a lot of fun doing it. We've had great staff at the City of Brampton. We have a great mayor, and I think she'll be returned, and I'm sure she'll do a great job, and I wish her and whoever is all the candidates who are successful tonight, all the best, and they got to keep our city great as it is.
Well, thank you for joining us, and best of luck to you in the future.
Thank you.
And that's it from the Pearson Convention Center. Back to you in the studio, Brian.
Thanks, Adele. Adele Halim in Brampton with Dick Metzak having been defeated by Gail Miles in Ward 7 and 8 Regional Council in Brampton. Right now we're going to go back. Immediately we have Farah Nasser. She's in Brampton with Bill Cowie, who's defeated this evening or is trailing right now for the mayoral race in Brampton. Farah?
Thanks, Brian. I'm here with Bill Cowie. Now tell us, you just looked at the numbers. I've seen you walking around here, greeting your supporters. They've been saying next time. You've been a straight shooter from the start of this campaign, Bill. Tell us, what do you think? Do you have a chance?
Oh, I don't think so. By the looks of the numbers, it's unlikely. It seems that there's a trend, and my guess is I'm going to end up the loser in this one.
So in some cases, you've been behind 100, 200, 300, one case even 500 votes. What do you think you did wrong?
Well, you know, one thing that Susan said to me very early in this term, and I'm talking over 2 years ago, she said to me in a fit of anger, I guess, we were in some trouble at council over either a pay raise or a tax increase, and she come out of a meeting and she said to me, that's it. All I'm going to do is work on getting reelected, and clearly, that's what's happened.
Okay, people have been coming up to you saying they'd support you if you decided to run again. Will there be a next time?
I don't know. It's a little disappointing when you work as hard as I do at council and dedicate yourself to the job and to the community as much as I do, and then you get these kind of results. Even my own ward, where I worked my buns off, they said no for some reason, but there was so much stuff going on out there. Some of my campaign people said to me the other night that they'd knocked on a door and the lady said, we're not voting for Bill Cowie because he got arrested for impaired driving. But totally, absolutely untrue. But that's the kind of crap that gets out there, and people start hearing things and believing things. I mean, that in itself is not all that occurs. I mean, there's lots of things that occur, but those are the kind of things that happen. And people make up their minds based on some of the rumors and lies they hear.
You've said you're being realistic, and having said that, what are you worried about is going to happen if Susan Fennell is elected mayor?
Well, you know what, I think she may have learned a lesson from all of this. Maybe she'll apply herself the way a mayor should apply herself. Some good friends of mine at council are returning to council, and I hope they unite and stop her from doing some of the things she does. And I hope that the community bands together and stops her from doing some of the things she does.
Well, it's been a good campaign, Bill Cowie. We wish you best of luck in the future.
Thank you very much.
That's it. We're here, and we'll be live from Susan Fennell's campaign headquarters shortly. Brian?
Thanks, Farah. Farah Nasser in Brampton at Bill Cowie's campaign headquarters there, speaking with Bill Cowie, long-term councillor in Brampton and long-term resident, commenting on the race tonight with Susan Fennell, the incumbent, and looking to be the next mayor of Brampton for the following 3 years. We're now going to jump back to Mississauga, where standing by is Akua Hines with Ward 4 winner Frank Dale. Akua? A bit of a technical problem, and hopefully we'll get that solved and go back to Frank Dale any moment. I just want to comment quickly on two of the wards in Brampton right now. Maria, I'll turn to you on this. One of the ones we were discussing recently, Sam Manning and Vicki Dillon, a very close race in City Council Wards 9 and 10, and it's been declared that Sam Manning has won that by 47 votes. Extremely close. Was that expected in that ward?
Actually, we didn't know what to expect in that ward. It's the only ward, large ward, 2 wards, and everybody there was is new to politics. So there was no incumbent. So it was open to anything. It's just how they set up their campaign teams, their platforms, and set out. But it was clearly Vicky and Garnet that got out and let us know what their plans were and what they wanted to do, and longtime residents of the city as well. So it was a very interesting race, but it certainly was tied up between the two.
It was, and
Yeah.
for regional council,
And very close, yeah.
wards 9 and 10 declared the winner is John Spravieri with 66.61% of the vote. Your comments on that?
John was a shoe-in. I mean, he really works his wards. He knows the people. He keeps in touch, and he looks after their issues. And so John is a strong candidate in the area, but tough one to run against. And I'm glad he's in. Yeah.
Okay, and just to follow up as well with Farah Nasser, who was speaking with Bill Cowie in Brampton at his campaign headquarters. You heard his comments regarding the race. What is your overall sentiment towards some of his comments this evening?
Well, in any race, there's always a winner and there's always a loser. And, you just take it as it comes. Bill knew what his hurdles were going to be. Susan certainly was a strong candidate to run against. And but he had the support. Bill was a very strong councillor, looked after his constituents, as he said, and I guess that's brought some disappointment to him. But I guess there's always a loser, and unfortunately, Bill was it this time. But he can always try again.
That's right. That's right. Bill Cowie having gone up against Susan Fennell this time around, and Susan Fennell the victor in Brampton. Right now we're going to go back to Brampton. We have Bob May standing by with Ward 1 and 5 City Councillor Manuel Alexander. Bob?
Thanks, Brian. Manuel, it's nice to talk to winners and it's nice to talk to incumbents who've been there before, but I thought it'd be really nice to spend a couple of minutes with you here tonight, Manuel Alexander, because it's a first time for you, and you actually did very, very well tonight. You pulled 14% of the vote, over 1,500 votes in Ward 1 against Grant Gibson tonight. How did it feel to be a first-time candidate and be around the area?
Well, it is a tough work to do. It's a tough job, no doubt about it. My competition was, as you mentioned, very hard. I was expecting that. Bob Hunter did pretty good too. And it's very tough to run against very high competition. However, I felt very proud of being in the community. I felt very proud of knocking at the doors, talking to people, observing their problems, paying attention to what they had to say. And I would do my best, and since I did not get voted in, but I'm very proud that the percentage that I have was very good. And as you mentioned, for the first time, I think it was excellent.
And I know when you came here to talk to me, you said you wanted to thank all your people that worked with you tonight.
No doubt about it, especially to my wife and my friends and my family. They were terrific and they did a great job, and nothing else to be expected from people that work very hard. I'm very proud of this beautiful city of Brampton, which I live on for 26 years, and also being a Portuguese background, I'm also the first one to be running for city council in this beautiful city of Brampton, which I'm very, very proud. Thank you to everyone who voted for me.
Will we see Manuel Alexander's name on the next ballot?
That's a very good question. Probably will.
All right, there you go. That's optimistic. Brian, that's a great candidate, a first-time candidate who did very, very well, and we really appreciate him coming on to spend a few minutes with you. And we're actually going to talk to another lady here very shortly, too, who also finished third in her riding. So I'm going to turn it back to you for a few minutes.
Okay, thanks, Bob. Bob May with Manuel Alexander, Brampton City Council candidate, one of 5 candidates, Wards 1 and 5, having been defeated by Grant Gibson, the incumbent. Manuel Alexander, very gracious in his defeat, suggesting he'd like to thank all those that were there to help him, and also expressing pride in being the first Portuguese candidate in Brampton. So we do not know whether we'll hear from him again. He would not answer that question. But many of these candidates obviously are going through a bit of a learning phase when they go up against some of the more experienced council persons. Maria, what would be something that someone would get from running through? Or Brad, maybe you'd be better to ask that too. What kind of experience do people come out of a political race with, and what can they take take
I,
from
I,
that?
I always say I think you make a better politician when you've lost once or maybe twice before you win, because you've seen the other side of the coin. When you get a whole campaign team together, you work very, very hard. Your family supports you, and they spend a lot of time away from you because you are out campaigning, you are out doing your best. You run for a reason. You run to win, you run to serve. So any of these candidates tonight, whether they're incumbents that have lost tonight, and certainly that's more the case in Brampton than it is in Mississauga, or you've run for the first time and you've lost, no one likes to lose. It's an experience. You have to chalk it up to experience in life and decide in the next election, depending on what's going on in your community and what is going on in your own personal life at the time, whether you're gonna take a shot at it again and run. So that's something everybody goes through, and there'll be a lot of disappointed people tonight. I mean, I was really surprised the number of candidates running in Brampton, especially when the wards were reduced, regional councillors running against city councillors for the same seat, and etc. To have a bunch of new people also join the race was really amazing, I think, to see in the city of Brampton. A lot of disappointed people tonight, more so than Mississauga. I guess other than Ward 5 in Mississauga, where obviously 20 people are disappointed tonight. But really, to see a lot of people run where government has totally changed in Brampton with fewer wards and fewer seats available, a lot of disappointed people there. So I know how they feel.
Yeah, okay. Speaking from experience, I guess is what you're suggesting at this moment.
I know how they feel.
We won't go there, but Ward 7, the numbers just came across there. Nando Inika is holding on to a pretty strong lead in Ward 7 over Bill Munden. That would have been expected.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. I think Councillor Unica, he's been there since 1988, one of the longest serving members of the current Mississauga City Council. And you know, it's an interesting ward. It's got a lot of older communities that have been there forever and ever and ever, and a lot of new development. And I think Councillor Unica he's got an art about him where he can balance the interests of those established communities against the fact that he's got some development and redevelopment in his ward that is sometimes are controversial. That's not easy for a councillor to do. They always say it's easier to be a councillor in an area where it's all farmland, because if the development comes along, there's nobody you can get upset about it because it's only the farmer next door, and he probably is happy to have the development because his land is more valuable at the end of the day. It's a fine art. It's a fine art to be able to do a development proposal, infill in an established community, and make it work. And I think Councillor Unica has an art for that. He has the ability to listen to people, bring them together, understand them, despite the fact that Bill Munden, who ran him again this time, ran a very strong campaign. And he resonated with a number of people with the kind of campaign he ran about appealing more to the established communities that maybe weren't getting the services or the attention they felt they should get. So, I mean, congratulations to Councillor Unica tonight. He had another strong race this time as he did 3 years ago. And, you know, that'll make him a better councillor in the future. Every time you have a strong race, makes you a better councillor, I always believe.
And you were touching on some of the issues regarding development, of course, and land being developed. I want to get back to that. We did go to the streets in Ward 5, and we asked you what was the main issue of this municipal election, and this was the answer.
Well, the concerns we had is, or I have, is cleanliness in Malton. You know, there's a lot of concerns, and that influenced my voting. Also, the railroad overpass on Goreway, we sometimes get stuck about 15 minutes before the train passes by until you can pass on.
Well, I don't have any concerns particularly. I've lived here for 30 years or more on Annika Drive, and I know that our town is totally different, and we're from everywhere in the world, which means I don't have to travel the world. I can meet people from everywhere. And I believe this way that God made us all, and we must live together, and we must encourage each other, and remember that we're no better than anybody else. So let's get on with the job of looking after our little area of Malton and keeping it in good shape and just taking care of one another.
Oh, well, this is a really big ward, you know, Ward 5, and we got 20 candidates. Unfortunately, with, you know, the choice that the one has to make is you know, make sure that the decision that you make is one based on the past, what went in this ward, and, you know, make sure the candidate's honest, and you know, we get what we vote for. Obviously, people leave their time, they leave their place, and they take time out to come to the polling station and vote. And obviously, I think we should be respected. And
police surveillance, and the crime rate in this part of the area. Plus, chances with the snow removal and the bridge on Goreway for the trains.
Well, I don't think enough people know the issues in the area, and I think that there's one or two candidates who do. The one candidate's been here many times, and in fact, that's who I'm for today.
Well, there you have it. Some words from people in Ward 5 regarding this 2003 municipal election. And in Ward 7 and 8 in Brampton for City Councillor, Sandra Hames, the incumbent, the longtime councillor, certainly the favorite to win, and she did win this evening. However, standing by now, we have another one of the 7 candidates who did not win tonight, Louise Gomez Trimble, standing by in Brampton.
Thanks, Brian. I'm here with Louise Gomez. Louise, as Brian said, you were up against a tremendous candidate in Sandra Hames, but as a first-time candidate, you also finished 3rd out of 7 candidates. So a lot of people in the riding were listening to what you had to say, and you obviously were listening to them and addressing their concerns. I want to congratulate you on a great campaign.
Well, thank you very much. I really wanted to thank Rogers Cable at the community TV station and just being able to cover the candidates' election process for both the candidates on television earlier and this evening. We really appreciate your coverage of the election, and it really was. I'd also like to thank my team. They really have worked hard during this campaign period, and they've been a real force that we had to put forth a valiant effort, but we certainly did have a good competitor, and we know that Ms. Hames will do very well, as she always has, and we hope that she'll take this mandate and be able to look at the interests of the people and the community and put them first, and as she always has, and make some very good decisions for our community. I'd like to just thank our web developer, Ryan Miniker, for the marvelous job he did, and also the City of Brampton and the election people, and my campaign manager, my husband Yvonne, my children Tanya and Patricia, and all the other people that have worked on our team. You really appreciate your assistance. And it's a humbling experience, actually, to be out there talking to people door to door. I think the community I'd like to thank the people that did vote for me and those that have kept in touch with us, and hope we'll just be able to continue to communicate with them. And thank you, Mr. May. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to see this.
You sound like a politician, Ms. Gomez. You really do. Are we going to see, does this whet your appetite to come back and do it again?
Well, I think we'd have to do a lot of, I think it will take a little bit of time to figure out what we are going to be doing in the next little while, but really appreciate the opportunity to be able to run in a free democratic society as we have in the City of Brampton, and just thank the municipal staff as well for all their input on this election day. It really takes a lot of coordination.
It does indeed. And I want to congratulate you on a great campaign to finish 3rd in a 7-person race first time out. You knew exactly what you were doing, and obviously a lot of the voters thought they had a good candidate in you.
Thanks very much, Mr. May. I just appreciate being able to talk to you this evening, and I wish our incumbent and her new mandate the best of luck. And again, it was an opportunity for us to be able to compete against them. And as somebody who has been part of a national swim team before, it really was a good competition. We're really glad to be able to have an ethical race.
Great. Okay, congratulations, and thank you very, very much. Stay with me. Brian, we're going to have Paul Palesci here, who's won his regional seat in a couple of minutes, so we'll send it back to you at the desk right now.
Thanks. Bob May there at Brampton City Hall, talking to Louise Gomez, candidate for Wards 7 and 8 City Council in Brampton, and having lost that seat there to the favorite and incumbent Sandra Hames. Very gracious in her defeat speech, if you want to call it that. We now are also going to go back to Akua Hines in Mississauga. We had a little trouble earlier with the audio, and we think we have that fixed now. Frank Dale, Mississauga councillor in Ward 4. Akua?
Thanks, Brian. I'm with Mississauga Ward 4 councillor Frank Dale. Frank,
You've been in politics for about 15 years with the council, and can you tell us about some of your plans if you are re-elected tonight?
Well, first, before I do that, I want to thank the Ward 4 community for coming out and showing their support. It's remarkable that they've supported me all these years. I really appreciate it so much. We've done a lot together, and I certainly look forward to working with them in the future. There are a number of challenges ahead of us. We certainly have to look at how we're going to keep the taxes at a reasonable rate and still continue to deliver the service or the level of service that the community has appreciated over the past few years.
Some of the things that they've appreciated are some of the things that you've been actively involved in helping to plan, like the opening of the Living Arts Centre, expanding Starlight Shopping Centre. Any other plans if you are?
Yeah, I think it's very important that we continue to keep a balance within our city centre itself. As you know, there's a lot of development occurring right now, and it's always been my style, anyways, my policy in the cities to try to continue to keep a balance between our commercial and our residential, and that will be a real challenge for the future within our city centre because we want it to be a people place. Obviously we want it to be a place where people can work, live, and certainly raise their families within the city centre itself.
Now, what are some of the things like plans for your first meeting?
No, I think it's continue to support the community, to work with the community, obviously work with a great council that we have had in class and work under Larry Mancini's leadership. I want to thank the voters and Ward 4 in particular. I want to thank all of those from the Mississauga Valley area. I want to thank Mississauga Meadows. I want to thank Huron Heights, and certainly the city centre, Kingsbridge, Heritage Hills, and the new subdivision of Centre for the strong support that they've shown to me this evening.
Now, you say you want to create a new recreational complex. When do you plan to get that?
Well, that was kind of a misquote, because what it was is that we are in the works of developing a sports complex up at the Hershey Centre, and I want to continue to work with Your Worship Mayor McCallion and my colleagues on council to see that that comes to fruition.
Thank you. I'm the Ward 4 Councillor, Mississauga, Frank Dale. Back to you at the desk.
Thank you, Akua Hines with Frank Dale, City Councillor Ward 4 in Mississauga, having been re-elected, standing there and answering questions with great support on this evening. And also, one of the other wards that we really haven't touched on, Brad, I'd like to bring you in for this, is Ward 6. George Carlson has been declared the incumbent, will hold that seat again in Ward 6. It is such a large ward, a population of approximately 110,000. What kind of issues were people looking to, and George Carlson, obviously having been re-elected, is expected to follow through on some of the things happening in that ward?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think some of the things that Councillor Carlson talked about was the continuing issues around the whole Credit Valley Credit Valley River Trail, and continuing to have both development and the environment kind of married. The Ward 6 is kind of an interesting ward because it basically goes right up the Credit River watercourse area, and right from the north end in Streetsville right down to the south end, almost to Dundas, where the ward is comprised. And that really is the hallmark, I think, of that ward. I think what George Carlson has been talking about as the ward councillor for the last 3 years is that's a very important hallmark within the city that needs to be protected and enhanced in the appropriate way, as well as dealing with the fact that he has communities like Streetsville and some of Arundel further to the south that have those same issues of being established communities that are concerned about infill development, that are concerned about the same issues that most communities are concerned about, whether it's speeding on streets or making sure that parks are maintained properly and there's open space for people. So the one interesting thing about George Carlson, I think I said this earlier, is, I mean, here's a guy basically born and raised in Streetsville, and he's used to that local community, get out there, get your knees dirty, and be a local councillor and get the job done. And I think people respond to that when you're a councillor like that and they see you and you're out there and you're planting trees and you're
Sure.
doing this and doing that. And that's the kind of councillor George is, and I'm not surprised. He's won by an overwhelming majority. People respond to that in his ward, and he's done that very well over the last 3 years.
Well, he will go into his second term for Ward 6. George Carlson served for 11 years as a trustee before joining council, and we've enjoyed having him here on Rogers Television, Politically Speaking, as a guest many times before. We now would like to go back to Brampton. Bob May is standing by. He has with him the winner for Brampton's Wards 2 and 6, Paul Paleschi, with him standing by. Bob?
Thanks, Brian. I'm here with Paul Paleschi. Paul, you're going back for a 7th term, my man.
I am. I am really happy in that to be going back and representing the people of 2 and 6.
You ran a good, clean campaign. You were up against some pretty strong people, well known in the community. 59% of the vote. You say you can't get cocky. You didn't have 60.
That's right. Yeah, you need 60 to get cocky, but it was. I think that we ran a clean campaign, but I will tell you it's the dirtiest campaign that I've been involved with. A couple of the candidates, one attacked me personally on the health issue, and I was really happy to see that he only got 8% of the vote in that, and it just goes to show you that you have to run a clean campaign. I want to congratulate Vicky Colburn. First time. The other two candidates that were in the running were previous councillors. Vicky Colburn, brand new to the scene, works for the region, and I got to congratulate her. She got 17% of the vote and ran a pretty good campaign. We're really happy. I got to thank my campaign team. We had a lot of people that were involved, and it's worked out great. You know, I really love what I do. I said it we had a debate last Thursday. I told the people there it's the same thing. I'm passionate about the job, sometimes too passionate, as you know, Bob. But I wear everything on my sleeve and go to work hard for the residents. And I'm glad and I'm very thankful to the residents for bringing me back for another term. There's a lot of work to be done.
Everybody going back to council, regional and city, is an incumbent. However, we lost a lot of good people tonight because of the downsizing of city council. I have said all along that the people who were on city council and regional council had a lot of guts in doing what they did, and if the city of Toronto would do something similar to it, they'd be a lot better off. How do you feel about going back to work with the incumbents, and how do you feel about losing some of those excellent people that were on the council?
It's really tough. I mean, you look at some of the incumbents that aren't coming back. I mean, Dick Metzak is the longest serving councillor that we've had on the city, present day councillors, and it's tough to see. Dick was a friend, or is a friend, and it's tough to see him go. Avtar, her first term, and really came along and worked hard. And any of the other ones, you know, it's the people that retired. I mean, they've done excellent work. So we have a new member coming onto the council, I believe, in Ward 10, 9 and 10, Manning, and I congratulate him. But I'm glad to see some of the others. I'm looking forward to working with John Sprovieri at the region. He's moving up, and I think that he and I at the region will work really well together. And that's.
Do you feel, and I asked Susan DeMarco the same question, do you feel that a smaller council will be easier to work with, or will it cause more problems?
I think it'll be easier to work with. I mean, I didn't have a problem working with the last council, and that I respected the other members of council, and I think I had their respect. And certainly, I think it's going to be just as easy working with this council of smaller numbers. Certainly, maybe the council meetings won't take as long sometimes, because you won't get 17 people all wanting to speak on one subject, Bob, as you know. That's right. That's right. But I think we'll work well. Susan's back, and congratulate her for that. She's got the helm for another 3 years, and we've worked well the last 3 years, so I look forward to working with her also as the mayor.
Well, congratulations. It's good to have you back, Paul, and look forward to seeing you on the show. As always, we'll have some good times again.
We will. We always have fun on that show.
Absolutely. Brian, we're going to come back for a final wrap-up in a few minutes. We'll send it back to the desk with you right now.
Great. Thanks, Bob May. With Paul Paleschi, Ward 2 and 6 Regional Council winner declared in Brampton, getting his comments on what's happened this evening. And we also have some other things we'd like to report on right now. As you can see, most of the races are pretty much already finished. We have not formally declared that Susan Fennell, of course, 100% of the vote now in. She having won 64.22% of the voter turnout, and Bill Cowie finishing with 35.78%. And Maria, I'll go to you on that. the numbers are now in, and we now know it was a considerable win for Susan Fennell. Was that sentiment in Brampton that it was going to be that much of a spread, or was there a belief that at some point it might have been a closer race?
I think that the sentiment was that there was going to be a spread. She started very, very, very early in the race, and I think she had a huge head start. But you know, being the incumbent, it's a little bit of an easier haul. But all around, the word on the street was that Susan would come in the winner.
And she did this evening.
She certainly did.
We have another winner now declared in Mississauga, Ward 3. Maya Prentice, the incumbent, long-term council person in Mississauga, running this evening against Peter Ferreira and Rajib Verma, has been declared the winner. And we'd like to go to that now. She's standing by with Marissa Zucara.
Thanks, Brian. I'm here at the Tompkin Twin Arena with Maya Prentice, who has been declared a winner with just over 50% of the votes. Maya, can you tell me, how does it feel?
It feels just fabulous. I'm very pleased and very grateful to a fabulous team that I had working with me and to a wonderful family who has supported me through 18 years of politics. So I'm very fortunate.
Now that you've won, what can the residents of Mississauga expect?
Well, I think probably more of the same. I've been very fiscally responsible, and I will continue to do that. In addition to that, there will be some new challenges that will be meeting us, and we were going to have to work together. We have to have a united council to get things done. We don't always agree with one another, but I think when the chips are down, we've proven that we work very well together as a team, and we make decisions and we accomplish things. And I'm looking forward to working with my colleagues for another 3 years, and certainly representing the residents of Ward 3. It's a great, great area, and I'm sure there will be new challenges there as well. So I will continue to communicate with them. They know they can count on me for totally honest representation, and I will certainly continue that for the next 3 years.
Can you just give all the viewers at home just an idea of what your first week is going to be like? Are there any issues that you plan to tackle right away?
Yes, I have about 5 or 6 issues. I have the opening of the Charlie Martin Trail tomorrow. I have the opening of the Future Store on Dundas Street at the end of the week. In addition to that, there are about 4 issues that have come up during the election that are, in my view, fairly serious ones that I want to get on with right away. So I will not be going away. I will be tomorrow afternoon opening the trail and right back to work.
Do you mind disclosing what some of those issues are?
Well, we have some development issues that I think need attention that were brought up during the election, people that have been dissatisfied with the outcome, and I promised to meet with them on that issue. We have a neighborhood issue with a medical office opening in a residential area without permits and without any appropriate documentation, and I have to make sure that that is dealt with right away. Just a number of things that, you know, this is what makes this job so fabulous, is like every day something comes up, something new, something different, and that's what's kept me here for 18 years. I can get bored easily if I don't have challenges, and there's never a day that there's not a challenge in the city of Mississauga, so I'm enjoying that part of it.
That's great. Well, congratulations. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. And that's here from the arena, as she goes back to greeting all the rest of her friends, family, and supporters, and back to the station, Brian.
Thank you, Marissa, at Maya Prentice, or with Maya Prentice rather, and her supporters this evening as she's been declared the winner in Ward 3. Also, we'd like to mention declared the winner in Ward 5. Discussions earlier with Brad regarding what was happening in Ward 5. 21 candidates this time around, a large list of candidates, and Eve Adams has been declared the winner in Ward 5. Also, certainly had been a relatively high-profile ward as a result of Cliff Giles having run again in Ward 5. A bit of a black eye for the city of Mississauga, or for council rather, when he was earlier charged and convicted with demanding bribes. Is it expected? I think a lot of people at this point were quite surprised to see his name on the ballot, Brad. Why was his name on the ballot, and what would be the reasoning for it?
Well, the main reason his name is on the ballot is because he had not been convicted of an offense under the Municipal Elections Act, which is a totally different act than the Municipal Act under which he swore his oath of office to serve as a councillor. The charges he was convicted on were a violation of the Municipal Act and the Criminal Code of Canada. So the charges he was convicted on were totally different than his right to run in an election. In fact, I could stand corrected, but I believe if you're a convicted criminal in jail, you could run for city council in the municipality in which you're living in jail. If you're in the Don jail in Toronto, I guess you could have run for council down there. Now, is that a loophole that probably should be cleaned up? I guess so.
Yes.
And that's up for the new provincial government to deal with, and I'm sure Mayor McCallion will be after the new provincial government to clean that up. Having said that, I think the people of Ward 5 did the right thing tonight. They knew exactly what their incumbent councillor had been convicted of. He fared very, very poorly today, and I think that's a credit for the electoral process. Even though he did put his name back in today, his constituents made it very clear. I'm sorry, a convicted felon is not going to represent the constituents of Ward 5, and they went for somebody brand new councillor. Give her a chance. Congratulations to Eve Adams. I think we wish her all the best in representing that community. And the people of Ward 5 did the right thing.
Now, Maria, from your point of view, do you find it surprising, as Brad's mentioned there, the ward has spoken and Cliff Giles certainly did not garner many votes, but at the same time, people did vote for him. Does it surprise you that these people still are putting their faith in a councillor that at some point may be doing time in prison?
Well, Brian, nothing really surprises me in politics these days. But sometimes maybe it's sometimes the constituents aren't informed. They probably don't know the extent of it. I mean, we have some situations even in Brampton, but they don't know the extent to what the allegations were, or to what extent. So probably went ahead as a loyal supporter anyway.
Okay. Well, we've had Brad and Maria's opinion on it. We also went to the streets to ask you your opinion on whether or not Cliff Giles should have been able to run for a municipal election as a result of the conviction on the bribery charges, and this is what you had to say.
I don't think he should have the right to run until he's either cleared or he served his conviction. I mean, the guy has a lot of nerves. I don't think he should have come near this place at all, I would say. So that influenced my vote as well.
Oh no, that's not fair anyway. Anybody is convicted, so it's not fair to vote him or her.
Good. Oh no. Just because to me he's a better candidate, so I choose him.
No, that didn't influence me at all.
I think it's a loophole in the system. I believe it's a mistake to have someone who's in his position being able to run. However, until they correct it, that's the way it's going to be.
And there you have it. People in Ward 5 speaking regarding Cliff Giles' name being put on the candidates' ballot this time around. And Brad, just one final point on that. The mayor, of course, has certainly placed herself in a spot a long way away from the goings-on surrounding Cliff Giles. There really is very little that anybody else can do in a case like this. Like you say, is it likely that she will take steps to avoid this happening again?
Well, she'll have to petition the province to change the legislation, because there's absolutely nothing that Mississauga Council, or if Brampton Council had the same problem, there's absolutely nothing they can do beyond what Mississauga Council did under the current legislative framework. So it'll take a amendment to the Municipal Elections Act and the Municipal Act to make sure this kind of thing doesn't happen in the future. And knowing Mayor McCallion, I'm sure she'll be full thrust in there to get those changes.
Okay,
1 and 5.
There we go. Well, now we're going to go back up to Brampton right now. Again, standing by, as he has been all night at City Hall, is Bob May, and he has with him Elaine Moore, representing Wards 1 and 5 for Regional Council in Brampton. Bob?
Thanks, Brian. We're here with Elaine Moore, another winner tonight in Regional Council for Wards 1 and 5 here in Brampton. And I know, Elaine, you were on earlier, but it was before you'd won. You didn't know what the vote was going to be. 65.4% tonight.
I am incredibly pleased with that, and a whole lot more relaxed right now than I was a couple of hours ago, let me tell you. But this is a wonderful opportunity to thank the incredible people I had working for on my campaign. I tell you, they had energy, they had enthusiasm, they were just an incredible group of people who came out willingly and enthusiastically every Saturday to help. So thank you to all of you. I could not have done it without you.
And I understand that you've got a party to go back to, so we're not going to keep you too much longer. Congratulations again, and we'll be seeing you back on the show, but that's nothing new. Most of the incumbents are coming back, although we lost some very good people tonight, and it's sad to see them go, but you know what? They're allowed to be back in short order, too.
Oh, you're right, and they've all made a contribution to the growth of Brampton and the development of this wonderful city.
All right, Brian, we will be back for a final wrap. I'm going to send it back to the desk and you right now.
Thanks, Bob. Bob May with Elaine Moore in Brampton. The winner, as we just heard there in Brampton for wards 1 and 5. And now that all the results are in, Maria, what is the difference in how the makeup of the council is in Brampton now versus how it was just days ago?
Actually, it's very much the same. We just have one new member to council, which is in City Council wards 9 and 10. I think we have a very strong council this time, some good thinkers on there. I think they're going to have a tough road ahead with all of our growth. So I wish them all the very best. It's going to be a tough haul for the next 3 years.
Right, and speaking of growth, I mean, we've heard that term thrown around so many times in this election by so many candidates, how to handle the growth. And Mayor McCallion, being the chair of the Smart Growth Panel, has certainly played a role in how this may lead into the future. What can we now surmise has to be done?
Those kinds of issues, to work with the development community to pace growth. But you know, at the end of the day, if people want to live in your community and they want to buy a home in your community, it's pretty tough to stop that kind of thing. I mean, we should be happy people want to live in the region of Peel. I mean, I guess we should be celebrating the fact people want to buy homes and condominiums or rent apartments and live in our community. So, and the businesses want to locate here. So it's a huge challenge. It has been for 20 years. It'll continue to be a huge challenge. And we'll have to see what the role of the provincial and federal governments will be in supporting municipalities as far as these growth pressures are concerned. There's only one taxpayer, and property taxes are certainly not enough revenue for a municipality to support growth, even though there's development levies and building permit fees and all those other things.
And Mayor McCallion has hinted at the fact, obviously, that there will be tax hikes well into the future now as a result of
well,
the financial
you know what, I think
picture.
that's going to be the reality for municipal governments for quite some time, regardless of changes at the province and the federal government, is that you know, municipalities are cash starved, they need more revenue, and the way they're going to get that revenue is either through property taxes increases or through senior levels of government giving them more money, like 2 cents a litre off the gas tax, federal and provincial, if that ever comes to pass, to help pay for public transit, etc., roads and so on. So those are the challenges municipalities have. I think it's a much more complicated job to be a municipal politician today than it was 20 years ago. Far more complicated. So all of these people getting elected or re-elected tonight, I think as they move along, the job gets more complicated. It's not just, the old saying was, you know, you fill in a pothole, you make sure the dog poop's picked up in the park. That was your job as a city councillor. That's not your job anymore. That's part of it.
Right.
Your big job is managing big corporations, big municipalities, and big growth issues. And whether it's Brampton or Mississauga, those are huge challenges over the next 3 years and even beyond.
And I think that's how we've evolved too, Brian. You know, before they used to be part-time positions, they could hold other jobs. And in Brampton, the Guardian did a very good job in you know, giving us the bios. But that was one big question they asked, like, will you be now serving as a full-time councillor? And a lot of these people have said yes, you know, because of the very issues that Brad talked about. It's not about, you know, the dog poop and this thing anymore.
Right.
It's serious infrastructure questions that they have to answer and look into, and so they're full-time positions. You just can't do it part-time anymore.
Of course, and now that both elections are behind us, more or less, the provincial and the municipal elections, how does Brampton see the positive sides to the growth that they're experiencing and the negative sides being changed by the two different governments?
Well, you see, my philosophy has always been, you plan your work, you work your plan. And that's something we're going to have to look at very, very seriously in our city. We have the land, we have the ability to grow, but we need to look at it and look at it very seriously, make sure that there's services available, with schools available, all of that, that all part of that package that go into subdivisions and various areas and part of that growth. Okay. So the plan has to be good, and everybody's got to work together with those different levels to make sure that all of these go together, because regionally are the roads and schools, and we've got to get into all of those issues. So working together is going to be a very, very key issue for all of these folks elected today.
Right, of course. And Brad, I know you're pretty much almost done here with us this evening, but just on a final note, a wrap-up of what happened in Mississauga tonight. We know the mayoralty race was pretty much over before it started, as were many of the other wards. But a wrap-up of what happened tonight and where you see it going from here.
Well, obviously no surprises. Pretty much everything we expected we were going to see. One brand new councillor, and I think most of us expected a change in Ward 5. No surprise there. And it was going to be the candidate that had the local campaign team, the strongest ability locally to get their vote out. And clearly that was new councillor Eve Adams. Best of luck to her. The other councillors, it's pretty much the same. But, I hope the message that they're getting, because I saw we had a board earlier that talked about the voter turnout. Mm-hmm. The voter turnout across the whole region was 22% tonight. I think 24, slightly higher in Brampton than Mississauga. I mean, that's dreadful. Now, if I'm an incumbent councillor, I don't care if I'm in Mississauga or Brampton, and 22% of the people are voting. Does that mean because people aren't going because they think I'm doing a great job, or are people not voting because there's total apathy? They just have given up. They don't really care who's representing their community. Very, very unfortunate that the voter turnout in both the provincial election a month ago and the municipal election tonight are both down this time over 2000 is the case in the municipal, and
as
over
mentioned
1999
earlier,
provincial. I mean, what does that say? When our population is growing and our voter turnout is down, I don't know what that says. And if I'm an incumbent, I might wake up tomorrow morning, look at all these numbers, look at all these stats and everything else, and I might say to myself, geez, fewer people voted in my ward, but I won by a greater percentage of the vote. What does that really mean? And maybe some of these incumbents have got a little bit more work to do in their communities to re-engage their communities on issues that concern them. That might be an issue tonight that really doesn't get across in all the numbers and all the victory parties, is why are fewer people voting? Why is the percentage going down? Is that good, bad, or indifferent for democracy and for my local community? So some incumbents, I'm sure, will be asking that over the next few weeks.
Right, and again, starting tomorrow, many incumbents will continue their job as city councillor, and many will start their new job, more so in the case of Brampton than in the case of Mississauga. So we'd like to thank, at this point, Brad Butt for joining us on the program, Municipal Votes 2003, and providing us with his insight and in-depth analysis. Always appreciated, Brad.
Thank you.
We couldn't do it without you, and we will look forward to seeing you again on In Camera right here on Rogers Television on Thursday evenings. We went to the street as well to ask you what you thought or who you did vote for City Mayor in Brampton, and this was your response.
I'm not going to tell you which ones, of course, but I'm going to re-elect some of them, and I'm going to put some new ones in.
Well, I voted for Susan Fennell because I think she's done a good job in the last 3 years. And I voted for Bob Anderson because he's promised that he's going to clear the snow in front of your house when you get old and you can't do it yourself.
I vote for Susan.
And what are some reasons for that? Or
She's done a good job, and she's very always on the spot. Anything that's going on, she's there.
There's only two people, and I didn't like Fennell, so I voted for Cowie.
I voted for the present mayor, Susan Fennell, and I think just on the basis of her record and her presence in the community during the past term, and like some of the things that she is standing for.
I voted for Bill Cowie. I think Brampton needs a change. Too much development and too much traffic. I think he has a plan.
Well, there you go, hearing from people who and why they voted for and who they voted for in the mayoralty race in Brampton. Right now we're going to go to Adele Halim, who is standing by with Brampton Regional Councillor, Ward 7 and 8, Gail Miles. She defeated Dick Metzak earlier this evening and a number of other candidates. Adele?
Thanks, Brian. I'm in Streets.
I feel wonderful. I feel great. Thank you.
The city has spoken and they chose you once again. Why do you think so?
What he wants me to talk about, because I'm starting to
Well, I would like to think that the reason that
getting
I
a little
was
tricky.
re-elected was because of the hard work that I put into the job as regional councillors. I think I have a good proven track record, and I think the community has recognized that.
Now, you mentioned one of the issues you want to deal with is crime prevention. And the Peel Police recently said that per day, 8 cars are stolen in Mississauga and Brampton. Now, how do you plan to counteract something like that?
Well, I believe that in order to have a safe community and to reduce crime in a community, it needs to be a combined effort between the police department and the community. We can't sit back as a community and say it's the job of the police department. I think each and every sector of our community has to become involved in trying to prevent crime. And I'm the president of the Brampton Safe City Association, which is an organization that works to involve all of our different sectors of our community in the prevention of crime. And I think that's the only way we're ever going to really reach a goal of being safe and feeling safe, that combined effort of community and police working together. That's the formula for success.
And you definitely have a formula for success. And I know this is a festive event, but I have to ask you, what about P3? What is your perspective on the new hospital?
Well, Brampton needs a second hospital. It's got to be the #1 priority of our council, and I believe it is. I don't think there's anybody on council or anybody in this community that doesn't recognize that to get a second hospital, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of life and death. I really believe it's come to that point. As Brampton's continue to grow, our healthcare needs have not been met by the province of Ontario, and that second hospital is part of the solution. It's got to be built, and council's got to make it our priority, whether or not we see it as our responsibility or not. I think everything's in place for it to happen, and council has got to take sort of a leading role in making sure that the province gets the funding for that hospital in place.
Okay, I'm going to let you get back to the party, but congratulations once again, and thanks for joining us.
Oh, great, and thank you for coming and joining us.
There you have it, Brian. Back to you in the studio.
Since 91.
Thank you, Adele Halim there in Brampton with Gail Miles, the incumbent and winner for Regional Council in Wards 7 and 8 in Brampton. Gail Miles there enjoying the celebration of the evening after having won that seat. Maria, what is your take on what's happened here with her? She had won the regional seat in the year 2000, and previous to that was a city councillor.
She's been a regional councillor since 1991 and was city councillor in 1988. A very strong voice. Gail has her own ideas and her opinions and is very strong to enforce them. And a very strong member on council. So congratulations, Gail. Well deserved.
Well deserved. Yeah. And what kind of challenges are facing the region? Like for the regional councillors this time around, is there an overall challenge that they have to come together on, or is it still kind of older issues?
Roads. In Brampton, that is just our big, huge issue. It's a widening of Beauvais Drive. We need it 6 lanes across, as some of it already is. Airport Road, Mississauga Road. We need to get those roads widened to shuffle the people back and forth off the 401, the 407, across to the east and west end of the city. What used to take 15 minutes, because I live on Town Line, what used to take 15 minutes is now taking me 45. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge difference for a commuter, who's going to work in the morning and coming home in the evening.
Right.
That's a big time waste.
Well, traffic gridlock and congestion remains a vital issue, not only in Brampton, but around the Peel region and in the GTA in general. We now are going to go back to Mississauga. We have Akua Hines standing by with the incumbent and winner in Ward 6, speaking to the issues of what are now facing him for his second term in office. George Carlson with Akua Hines.
Thanks, Brian. I'm in Streetsville with Ward 6 from Mississauga. Current Councillor George Carlson. George, you're in the lead right now. How does it feel?
It feels great. I love it.
What are some of your plans if you're re-elected tonight?
Well, I'd like to move forward very quickly with improvements to transit in Ward 6, particularly in the Streetsville area, a shuttle bus, as well as additional housing for seniors. These are very important issues.
How do you plan to put these plans into place, and when do you expect that they will start to get in motion?
We're about to start our budget debates for 2004, and I think it's going to be part of those discussions. We have some major issues to deal with very quickly, and I'll be back to work tomorrow morning.
Any other plans for your ward in particular? Any other issues that are affecting your ward?
Well, I think the most important thing is to continue to do good things for people, and that's why I had such a good support tonight. I return the calls, so I get back to people. I make sure the job gets done, and I'm going to continue tomorrow morning, the very same as I've been doing for the last 3 years. So it's just important for me to keep working.
Thank you very much, George.
You're welcome.
Back to you, Brian. I am with Ward 6 Councillor of Mississauga, George Carlson. Back to you at the desk.
Thanks for your report, Akua Hines, there with George Carlson in Mississauga. We now are going to go back for the final time of the evening to Brampton City Hall, where standing by is Bob May, the host of Politically Speaking in Brampton, and of course our trusted correspondent each and every time we have political matters at hand. Bob May, give us a rundown, Bob, if you wouldn't mind, on basically what you saw through your eyes in Brampton tonight.
Well, Brian, it was a fairly interesting evening up here. There were a lot of people who were very happy with what happened. There were a lot of people who understood what happened. And you know what? In some respects, it's a sad evening up here, too, because we're losing some very, very good people from council, whether it's regional or whether it's city council. The people in the City Council and the Regional Council here in Brampton and the Mayor, Susan Fennell, are to be commended, because their cutting down the size of Regional and City Council was a monumental task. Everything had to be redone. All the wards had to be reevaluated. They had to be matched. So you end up with 5 city councillors and 5 regional councillors. They did a tremendous job over the last 3 years, and they didn't get an awful lot of credit for it. It actually started 6 years ago when they started to talk about it. And Brian, when it all came down to the nuts and the push and the bolts, and they had to get this job done, you know what? City Council in Brampton got it done, and so did the Regional Council. So they're to be credited immensely with that. As we mentioned earlier on, we're losing some tremendous people here tonight. Hopefully they won't go away and disappear into the woodwork, and if I know the people involved, you know what? They won't. We're looking at a situation here in Brampton where we have some very, very fine people going back to council, whether it's regional or city, and we have one new person going in. So it's going to be an interesting situation here for the next 3 years. I think Susan Fennell has an agenda that she wants to follow. She's been true to her word over the last 3 years, and I think that showed in the vote tonight. She's a pretty straight shooter. She's very comfortable dealing with just about anybody here in the city of Brampton. I've always thought a lot of Susan, but I thought a lot of Bill Cowie too. Bill Cowie was a super person, and he put up a real good fight. There was slight animosity in the debate, but you know what? It looked to me when I was watching that these two people were trying not to compliment each other, but they really couldn't help it. So it's a situation whereby we have an awful lot of really, really good people here in Brampton, and we got a lot of good things to look forward to. Does Susan and the council have a lot of work? Well, by God, they sure do. We've mentioned it 2 or 3 times tonight down in studio. If they don't get the gridlock set up here in the north end of Brampton, if they don't get the 410 built, you know what? It's not really their problem. This is a provincial and federal problem. In some respects, the city takes the brunt of all this. So it's going to be a tough situation for them. Yes, Brian?
Well, sorry, Bob. No, I just wanted to comment briefly on the issues that you had mentioned, and you were just starting to touch on it, about the city having to take on the provincial, whether it be highway problems or otherwise. What is the vision that Brampton sees for itself? Because it is growing so quickly.
Absolutely.
Mississauga has certainly grown, but Brampton still sees a lot of room for growth right now. Where do they see that vision going in the next 3 years?
Well, I think all the councillors would like to see exactly the same thing. We are going to get Bovaird Drive widened to 6 lanes next year. You know what? I'm not sure that's good enough when it's all said and done. We're putting another 10,000 houses in the north end of Brampton. That's an awful lot of traffic and an awful lot of infrastructure that's needed. I think it's imperative that the provincial government gets the 410 done as soon as possible. When they get those big trucks off the 410, back on the 410 and off Beauvais Drive, it's going to ease traffic congestion by an awful lot. So I think that's one of their main things. One of the other main things, Brian, that they have to take on is the hospital situation. It always comes up at City Hall. Again, it is not something that the city's to be involved with particularly. It's a provincial and federal matter. The monies come from the provincial government. The P3 hospital is probably not in doubt. It's going to be built. We had people running in their city campaigns here saying they were going to stop the hospital. Well, it's not really a city issue, so it's a lot. They have an awful lot on their plate. They have an awful lot to try and explain to the citizens of Brampton. We have really grown up from a small community to, I would say, a major city in the last 10 years. And Brian, we're going to double our population here again in the next 10 years.
Well, there certainly is a lot of future in Brampton. One final comment, Bob. The voter turnout in Brampton for the election this evening was in and around 22%. You were there for the provincial election.
Right.
You saw the voter turnout at that time, and here we are just over a month later. The numbers seem to be quite strong for each winner, but do you think that there was any differences as a result of the voter turnout?
No, not particularly. I agree with Brad's comments that he made just a few minutes ago. Is it apathy on the voters' parts, or is it a situation where the voters are saying these people have done a very good job and we're willing to send them back again, and they don't need my vote to get it? And you know what? They were right. I think you're going to get a higher voter turnout, Brian, when there is something in a city or a region or a municipality that is going to drive the vote, and that is some sort of an issue that's going to bring something to a head. And you look at the people in Ward 5 in Mississauga tonight, they had that. They wanted to get out and make sure that they had a new candidate out there. And I'm not sure, but I believe the voter turnout in Ward 5 in Mississauga was fairly high tonight. So I think that's the thing that drives the issues in a race like this. And everybody was pretty content with who we got because we sent everybody back tonight.
Well, there you go, Bob. And from all of us here at Rogers, we'd like to thank you again for your hard work and determination on getting to the bottom of the issues in Brampton. You certainly not only had some great exclusives during the provincial election, but tonight as well, uncovering all the major stories and bringing us the facts direct from Brampton.
Brian, it's always great working with you people down there, and I don't get into the office nearly as much as I probably should, but it's always great working with you people. You're a great team down there, and the people in the control room do a wonderful job. And in closing tonight, I would just like to say one thing. Tomorrow is Remembrance Day. Please, let's remember the people who made it possible for us to vote tonight. Good night, Brian.
Thanks, Bob. Bob May in Brampton at City Hall tonight, providing us with invaluable information. And now that we've heard from Brampton, and the story is more or less closed there, what is the primary focus right now for Brampton? Because the new job starts tomorrow, and we've heard about so many different things. But what is the first order of business in Brampton?
It most probably is going to have to be the infrastructure, the roads. And secondly, too, another issue that's always come up and is going to be coming up is the hospital. You know, I work very closely with the Salvation Army in the shelter, and with the growing population, the need is growing there as well, you know, and we just can't keep up. It's impossible to keep up. Mm-hmm. We need the new hospital. We need to keep the one that's on Lynch Street viable as well, and build upon that. We're going to need the two hospitals in that city because it's just far too, right now, we can't service everybody that walks through the doors.
Right, and the P3 hospital, of course, had been in the headlines in Brampton for such a long period of time.
Well, because we had the minister in Brampton, and it was something that he really wanted to see through. But most certainly a hospital is going to be a very, very crucial issue for us. Roads are going to have to be right on the agenda. They're going to have to get through and get that moving, without a doubt, because we're at gridlock right now.
Of course.
And we certainly have to address that issue.
And now that we have the votes, Maria, just give us a rundown on what the overview was in Brampton. I mean, if you run through it briefly, City Council and the winners and the expectations, and now what will follow, as well as in the regional
Well, I'm
council.
actually rather pleased to have a look at the results of what's come out in Brampton, because, you know, obviously they are looking ahead to think, well, you know, in the next decade we are looking at another 300,000 people, and you know, they've chosen people with the experience. thinking, you've been that first haul, now help us through the second.
Right.
And I'm very pleased to see that. We've got the experience there right now. We've got some very strong thinkers on board, and I think we will do very well. I think Susan has a very good team to work with, and together with the regional and city councillors, I think we will, we'll start to see these changes happen, and quite quickly.
Right, and important changes they will be in Brampton. What about Bill Cowie now that I didn't quite hear all of his interview, but is there a future for him? He's served in the community of Brampton for so long. Is this something you'd expect him to just take a step back from and realign himself with where he wants to go, or do you think he actually will jump right back into some political involvement in Brampton?
You know, if I had any recommendations for Bill, I mean, I would like to see him sit on some of the committees with the rest of us volunteers that sit on some very, very important committees and make some change. There is now a new group in Brampton that's organized themselves called the Citizens for a Greater City, who would like to see, that Queen Street corridor grow and develop so that we can attract big business down into the corridor. So there's a lot of place where Bill will be a good fit, and certainly an asset with his experience on council, because he knows the ins and outs, probably a lot more than those of us that are volunteers, putting in our input.
Right.
So I would like to see him stay on a lot of these committees and work with the other volunteers of the city. So I wish him all the best. He's served a long time. I think he should take a great big holiday somewhere warm and come back with a fresh mind to help us out. Yeah.
Well, that's a good wish, of course, for Bill Cowie, having lost the race this evening to Susan Fennell in Brampton. Susan Fennell, tackled the big issues throughout this campaign, and of course, there was some mention of the debate that took place in Brampton between Bill Cowie and Mayor Fennell, and Bob May touched on it. What do you think that did to the voters this time around? I mean, there was a 30-point spread between, as far as the victory was concerned for Susan Fennell. Do you think that the debate made a big difference?
Without a doubt. On the street, it made a difference. The papers, even the Toronto papers, picked up on the differences. It most certainly made a big difference. So, and I think people watching it accordingly decided to vote or not go out to vote. And I'm very sorry to see that only 24% of Brampton came out to vote. I mean, after all, this is something that's going to affect their day-to-day lives, and 24% just doesn't cut it, I think. We need to get more people out.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. But like I said, I'm very pleased to see our whole panel of councillors on board, very strong councillors, and I think we'll do extremely well this next term.
Okay, yeah. And of course, just to finish up with some of the business in Mississauga, we will be going to give you a complete rundown as far as the winners throughout the region here, including Brampton and Mississauga, so that you are completely up to date on who won in each seat for region and for city in Brampton. Of course, the city having restructured this time around, a little different from the election in the year 2000, having downsized in a sense, I guess, for city chair and for regional. They are now doubling up their work, I guess, in a sense for that. And in Mississauga, pretty much the status quo throughout Mississauga, all 9 wards and the mayor, and of course the city councillors also do dual duty on the region as well. We're going to get that information for you. We continue to provide you the information as to the numbers, the final numbers that are now being reported. This time around, the election was much more immediate, Maria, as a result of the polling stations and the way the electronic vote was administered. Now, you voted today. What did you find how did you find the experience different from past elections?
You just walked in and walked out, and it was a very, very quick process, because the electronic process instantly tabulates all the votes. And as we've seen them coming through, they came through very, very quickly today. And so I'm pleased. I hope we keep the system, and it's certainly proved to be very useful.
Right, and of course this time around there was no room for error, because as a result of a spoiled ballot or a mistaken,
no recounts,
they would call you back right away. Yeah. So it seems to be the year of the let's get our ballot right.
Exactly.
This time around. Going into some of the information here as to who was reelected in Mississauga, Brad Butt giving us some in-depth analysis on that earlier. In Ward 1, we have Carmen Corbison. Oh, sorry, we'll go right to the Mississauga mayoral candidates. Of course, Mayor Hazel McCallion re-elected for her 10th term. Actually, a pretty phenomenal number when you really think of it. 91% of the vote, having defeated 4 other candidates this time around. Mayor McCallion will sit as mayor for 1 more term at least. We know that for sure. We go to Mississauga Ward 1, where we see Carmen Corbison won by a landslide there in Ward 1, the southern part of Mississauga. She defeated Jack Janczak and Peter Pribitikiewski in that race. In Ward 2, Patricia Mullen declared the winner of that seat. She was declared quite early. The only other candidate in that ward was Scott Wilson. Long-term city councillor, many years of experience at City Hall. My apprentice, winning in Ward 3, defeating Peter Ferrara. Somewhat of a closer race than many would have expected. Peter Ferrara, as Brad Butt had mentioned earlier, ran a very strong campaign, and the other candidate in that ward was Rajiv Verma, my apprentice, the winner. Frank Dale, we heard from Frank, a victory speech from him, or comments rather. Frank Dale, a big winner in Ward 4, Mississauga over Madanat Khan. Ward 5, one of the more interesting stories of the evening in Mississauga. 21 candidates. So you'll see that we only have a number of them on the screen at any one time. Eve Adams was declared the winner. She ran a strong campaign up against a number of candidates, including Cliff Giles, who had previously held the seat in Ward 5, and obviously some controversy in Ward 5, Eve Adams having been elected. Ward 6, we go to in Mississauga, George Carlson, population of just over 110,000 in that ward. He was re-elected, having first won the ward in the year 2000. He defeated Sarabjit Kaur and Sean Semper White. In Ward 7, Nando Ianika, he won in Ward 7, defeating Bill Munden in the center, what used to be the center of Mississauga, Ward 7. In Ward 8, the acclaimed winner was Katie Mahoney. In Ward 9, 4 candidates. We didn't really touch much on Ward 9 this evening. Pat Sato did win, a clear victory for her, celebrating a win in Ward 9, the northwest portion of the city, over Jack Janiak, Michael Johnson, and the 4th candidate in that ward was Paul Singh. Now we go to turn to Brampton. Brampton, of course, the mayoral race, somewhat closer, or a lot closer, depending on the way you look at it, than the Mississauga race. Susan Fennell being re-elected with 64% of the vote in Brampton over Bill Cowie. In Brampton, combined Ward 1 and 5 for City Councillor. The winner there was the incumbent Grant Gibson, defeating 5 candidates in that ward. Manuel Alexandra, we heard from him. Dave Dollywall, Patrick Downey, and Bob Hunter also running. Brampton Wards 2 and 6 for City Councillor. The winner, John Hutton. Many years of experience in politics in Brampton. John Hutton defeating numerous candidates to win Ward 2 and 6 City Councillor. Maria, any comments on that? We did have John Hutton on earlier talking about the ward, and you had already mentioned he's certainly been around Brampton for a long time. What were your thoughts on that win for John?
John also has a lot of rural divisions in his riding as well. So he lives in the riding as well. So he knows a lot of the people. And when you get into some of the smaller towns and the smaller villages within the ward, there's a lot of that loyalty as well. But John has serviced the region very well, and serviced his ward very well, and obviously it shows that he's certainly the incumbent that's the favorite.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're going to go back now to Wards 3 and 4 City Councillor candidates, a number of candidates in that ward, including Bob Callahan, of course, who won in that ward handily. Interesting story, Chris Moisey also ran as an NDP candidate in the most recent provincial election, a name that many might recognize in that ward. And Avtar Alya also was maybe expecting a better result than what she saw tonight.
Yeah.
What are your comments on that, Maria?
Avtar was worked very hard in council. She was new to the last term and worked extremely hard. And it will be sad to see Avtar go, but like I said, we've got lots of committees, and their experience would be greatly needed on those committees as we start to push through into this new term.
Right.
But a strong candidate, and I hope she keeps her name around.
Well, she certainly did run, as by all accounts, a very good, solid campaign on hopes to provide necessary resources to manage the growth, which we've brought up numerous times this evening, and to improve transportation and increase the recreation programs for youth. And that's another topic that was not brought up all that often this evening, but there was a strong underlying message towards youth programs, recreation for youth, and that sort of thing. Was that something coming out of Brampton?
Well, as you know, Brampton has probably the youngest population average across the country, and so we have tremendous numbers of youth. And so schools are a big issue for us, that we just don't have enough schools. Keeping the children occupied in the evening, so recreation becomes an issue, so that we have enough of baseball leagues to put the children into, or evening activities for children, rather than having wandering malls or streets and issues like that. And AFTA was a real, supporter of that. And also, too, because we have such a wonderful mix of the ethnic population, to be able to adapt to those areas as well is an issue that they have to face. So it's they've got a tough job ahead of them in Brampton.
They do.
Yep,
they do. And we'll go to the next Ward 7 and 8. Maria providing some great insight here as to some of the candidates in Brampton and the winners. For City Councillor, the winner in Ward 7 and 8, Sandra Hames, having run a very strong campaign and defeating a number of candidates in Wards 7 and 8. She was the incumbent this time around, Maria, a longtime councillor, a 12-year veteran, as a matter of fact. What are her expectations going into, or as a result of this victory?
Sandra is, has a mind of her own. She certainly, when she thinks something is right, she will, dig in her heels and make sure she gets her voice heard.
Right.
And I think the constituents know that, and that's why it's such a big lead. But she's a very, very strong candidate on council, and a very good supporter to her constituents in her wards, and I wish her very well.
Okay, we'll go now next to Wards 9 and 10 for Brampton City Councillor. That was a very, very close race. You can see the winner highlighted there, Vicky Dillon. However, a very, very strong challenge from Garnet Manning. Just a very slight percentage differential. I think it was only a percentage or maybe two in that race for Brampton City Councillor Wards 9 and 10. Why, or I'm sorry, I have, different information, and you probably know this, Maria. Manning did win that ward, and it was very close, back and forth with Dillon.
I think Manning won it by 47 votes.
Right, it was that close. Yeah. What can somebody like Manning take from that? And of course, Vicky Dillon realizing that they were so close, but couldn't quite get the win.
Well, again, it's getting your vote out, like anything, Brian. But Garnet is sat on the advisory council for the greater city, citizens for the greater city. So he knows what the concerns are of his constituents. Those two wards are extremely large, and it's a combination of a lot of our industrial area as well, and a lot of new housing, a lot of new citizens into the city now. And Ward 9, as we call it, Springdale, also too, large ethnic mix-up in that area. So he will have to certainly listen to the needs of the people and what they require up there, because being very new areas, they are going to need schools, roads without a doubt, because that's Airport Road as well, that cuts right through the two wards. And a lot of our people there work down by the airport strip, so we've got to get into the transportation down there. Brampton certainly needs GO Train like we do in Mississauga.
Right, GO Train is something that has been brought up.
That's certainly a huge issue. We have to shuffle our people back and forth, and that's an issue the province is going to have to seriously look at in Brampton right now.
Okay, and there it is again. Sorry, we apologize for the mistake on that. Garnet Manning having won city councillor in wards 9 and 10 in a very close race. We now turn to the regional city candidates and the winners in Brampton, wards 1 and 5. Just 3 candidates represent or vying for the ward. The winner, Elaine Moore, we spoke with her earlier this evening on Municipal Votes 2003. In wards 3 and 4, Brampton for regional councillor, or sorry, 2 and 6 rather, we have Paul Paleschi. We also heard from him earlier this evening. He was in with great experience, of course, but a number of candidates there expected that he would win.
Oh, yeah. Paul is a very strong supporter of his in the Heart Lake region, as we call it, and a real favorite. But he's a very strong candidate, big voice on council, and he was a sure win there.
He was.
Yes.
And there was one question that I wanted to ask you about that was posed to Paul, and that was the Brampton Council now having been downsized. Will that be, in your mind, will that be easier or make it more difficult to work and to get things done?
Well, usually when you downsize, you hope to make it easier, but that'll be a question we'll have to see as the months roll on. But being that most of them have worked together, so it'll be the status quo. I think we will be able to look at the issues now and pass them through a lot faster, because certainly now, you know, there is that urgency now that these things have to get done.
Right.
And so I think the pressure will be on them to all, you know, get up, work together, and move it on.
Okay, very important. Yeah. And we'll go back now to Brampton Region Council candidates. And your winner for Ward 3 and 4 is Susan DeMarco, having defeated Frank Raymond, John Sanderson, and Rajinder Sandhu in Ward 3 and 4 for Brampton. Wards 7 and 8, Regional Council winner Gail Miles. We heard from Gail just a few moments ago discussing the merits of her victory this evening over what really did turn out to be one of the big stories of the night in Brampton going into this election, the tete-a-tete between her and Dick Metzak.
That's right.
And how did that all play out this evening?
Oh, you know, like I said, it's come as a surprise because I thought it was going to be a very, very close race because they both ran very aggressive campaigns. But obviously, Gail got her vote out and had a very good campaign team. And I wish her all the very best. She's a strong candidate on council and really works for the people. And safety is a big issue for Gail. So I think she will continue to do as she has in the past.
Right. Well, of course, that's what the voters are looking for.
That's right.
Most of the time, as far as these elections are concerned, they want to see the people that they voted for
That's
follow through on their promises. And having seen some sweeping changes during the provincial election, you know, I think when it comes right down, like we've heard this term many times before, municipal matters.
Yes.
You know, local matters are very important.
Sure.
And if things aren't getting done at a local level, then sometimes the bigger items, you know, get lost in the shuffle in a sense.
Because for the day-to-day living, I mean, the citizens, I mean, the municipal aspect of it hits us first. You know, because we drive the roads, we sit on the buses, we sit in the parks, and issues like that. So it hits us first. So to them, it's and that's why I'm surprised that we don't get more people out voting, because this is where they have their say.
This is where it counts.
This is where it counts, exactly. It's right in their backyard. And I'm really surprised that we're so complacent about getting out and voting, you know?
Well, it is very important, of course. And we have one final board to show you here this evening with for Brampton. We should have that coming up now. Brampton's Ward 9 and 10 regional councillor candidates. We had 4 candidates for Ward 9 and 10, and the winner was John Sproviera. And did I get that right, Maria?
Sprovieri.
Sprovieri. Now, see, like you say, there's a proper pronunciation, and I apologize for any of the names that I may have mistakenly pronounced on this evening's show. But of course, as long as they won, I'm sure that they're not that concerned
I'm sure John
by my
thrilled.
take on it. We also have the final results here in the city of Toronto. A big race in downtown. Now, this is something that was one of the most exciting mayoral races in the city's history. Having really started on a bit of a slow note, Barbara Hall obviously was the front runner from the outset, having garnered probably, I think it was in the neighborhood of 35% of the vote early on.
Yeah,
and
that was quite surprising.
David Miller, having won the mayoral race with just over 285,000 votes, he came from way back in the pack, as did John Tory, who was running on a pretty strong platform of more policing for the city, of greater community and awareness, and that kind of, and garbage incineration was another big point by John Tory. Your familiarity with what happened there, and why might the City of Toronto gone to a David Miller style candidate as opposed to what the other choices were, Barbara Hall or John Tory?
Well, Toronto never ceases to surprise me. You know, you think they're going to think one way, and it was, you know, very, like Barbara Hall, for instance. You know, her numbers were huge going in, and then as these gentlemen, you know, had their very aggressive campaigns, the numbers started to pick up. We were sort of hopeful that Toronto would look into somebody with some business background, because they are, you know, world renowned, and certainly we need some kind of strength in that area. But Toronto has spoken, and we'll have to see what the next 3 years brings across.
Right, and it was amazing the way the polls for both David Miller and for John Tory continued to show increasing strength on their behalf, and Barbara Hall, of course, was going in the other direction, which was not a positive sign for her campaign. But David Miller comes in as a long-term councillor in the City of Toronto, having worked in the Bloor High Park, or been councillor representing the Bloor High Park area for quite some time. And I think that what the voters of Toronto may be saying as a result of this election is that they were looking for somebody who had somewhat of a vision above and beyond just a Band-Aid approach.
Right.
And it seemed as though David Miller's vision was resonating with the voters because they wanted to work with the long-term approach.
And you know, you cannot underestimate the experience as well. They've had the hands-on sort of approach. They know what the concerns are and the needs. It's just the bigger picture, I guess, that we will have to watch very carefully right now.
Right, and John Tory, I mean, he certainly had a lot of experience in the business world.
Sure.
We all know that very well here at Rogers, but he certainly should be very proud of the showing that he had in his real first political race, coming in a close second in a race that.
And going back to the question that you asked Brad, you know, win or lose, you know, sometimes the losers in these situations, it's a great opportunity for them to learn the ropes, because they learned where they've made the mistakes. They know what they have to do the next time, and second time around they come back with great confidence to be able to run out and do that job, you know. And so, you know, I think those that have lost in these races should use it as a real platform for next term.
Right.
And build on that.
Very important. And as a result of the last election in the year 2000, you were the president of the Brampton Board of Trade in what year?
97 and 98.
97, 98. Okay, so it was the previous term. But how have you seen the business approach and their interaction with local government in Brampton change between 1997, 98, when you were the president, and the way it is today?
Well, I guess, you know, all of that depends on the approach of the mayor, because really they are the salespeople for that city. You know, Susan has, I would say, as she claims, she spends 1/3 of her time selling the city and trying to bring people in and introduce businesses to the city. So she has done a good job in that way to work with the economic development team, and she tours around the world to introduce Brampton to various cities. We have sister cities now in Plano, Texas. We will be setting up one in Italy. So, you know, the effort is certainly there, and it's certainly at the forefront for Susan. So I hope she will continue that. She's very strong in that area, and we have been successful.
We have been, and of course she has been successful tonight as well in Brampton, having won the mayoral race there over Bill Cowie. We want to jump back to your words that came from the people in Ward 5 as a result of the big changes that, well, we now know the change in the seat there, Eve Adams having won in Ward 5. So we went to the street to ask you about what your issues were for this election.
Well, the concerns we had is, or I have, is cleanliness in Malton. You know, there's a lot of concerns, and that influenced my voting. Also, the railroad overpass on Goreway, We sometimes get stuck about 15 minutes before the train passes by until you can pass on.
Well, I don't have any concerns particularly. I've lived here for 30 years or more on Annika Drive, and I know that our town is totally different, and we're from everywhere in the world, which means I don't have to travel the world. I can meet people from everywhere, and I believe this way that God made us all, and we must live together, and we must encourage each other, and remember that we're no better than anybody else. So let's get on with the job of looking after our little area of Moulton and keeping it in good shape and just taking care of one another.
Oh, well, this is a really big ward, Ward 5, and we got 20 candidates. Unfortunately, the choice that the one has to make is make sure that the decision that you make is one based on the past, what went in this ward, and make sure the candidate's honest, and we get what we vote for. Obviously, people leave their time, they leave their place, and they take time out to come to the polling station and vote, and obviously, I think we should be respected, and
police surveillance, and the crime rate in this part of the area. Plus, chances with the snow removal and the bridge on Goreway for the trains.
Well, I don't think enough people know the issues in the area, and I think that there's one or two candidates who do. The one candidate's been here many times, and in fact, that's who I'm for today.
Well, there you have it, residents of Ward 5 discussing their concerns this time around, municipal election 2003, and what they think may need to be changed in their ward. We're going to be going live any moment now. We have Susan Fennell. We've been holding out. We wanted to get her interview this evening as a result of her win for mayor in Brampton. We thought it was important to get that for you. Marie, I guess I'll ask you a couple questions about Susan Fennell while we get that ready. She was in disagreement about the split on city council. She had mentioned that, and that is there any truth by the statements made about the statements made by her opponents to the contrary, or is it something that Susan Fennell would like? Why would she have been opposed to the disagreement and to the downsizing?
Well, no, I think Susan was a supporter of the downsizing. When reading the articles in my reviews over the weekend, the Guardian quotes her as saying that she was one of the big supporters of the downsizing of council. I happened to be on the committee with the Board of Trade at the time when that proposal was put to Susan, and I mean, ultimately, she's one vote at the end of the day. So, but most certainly, from her testimony from the Guardian, she was in support of the downsizing.
Right, and what are, sorry, she's run in the past on the politics of inclusion. That's a term that she likes to use. What exactly does that mean?
Well, she's a real people person, Susan. There's no doubt about it. And her approach is that, if there's an issue to be had, if you require a town hall meeting, she will have a town hall meeting to get the approach. I remember we had one with Mr. Clement at the time of the hospital, and there was a town hall meeting held, and everybody was invited to participate. The same with several other committees as well. She likes to include the opinions of others, to say that, okay, fine, we've done this, now we'll take it to council and take our decision there. Right. And then accordingly include the council. So and the chips fall where they may when it gets to council, because once you get all the other opinions in, sometimes it's been difficult.
Maria, thank you for that. I do want to go now live to Brampton. Standing by is Farah Nasser with now the newly elected for the second term mayor of Brampton, Susan Fennell. Farah?
Good to go. Hey, Hazel.
Hey, they're having a good time in Brampton.
Okay, we're ready. We're on live. We're live with Mayor Susan Fennell, and at her victory party, she's dancing away. As you can see, she just told me to turn the music back on. Right?
Yes,
How does
I
it
did.
feel? How do you feel? How are you feeling right now?
Well, I feel very humbled by the support of the citizens of Brampton. Tonight, what we've seen is a program started 3 years ago, the Citizens Agenda, where we've reconnected the citizens to be involved in the future of their city. And tonight, we've learned that that's the style of government governance that the citizens want, and I'm very humbled by their support, and I pledge to the citizens that as long as I'm mayor, we're going to continue to ask the citizens how we're going to build out and build the future of their great city. I'm absolutely so honored to be the mayor of this great city. The people of Brampton have shown their support tonight, and they can count on my support every day. We start tomorrow morning. The Remembrance Day parades will be at the Cenotaph in downtown Brampton at 11 o'clock sharp.
Okay, now this is your second win. The first term, obviously the first one. How does this one compare?
Well, this one compares quite differently. Of course, the first one was challenging the incumbent mayor, and this one was taking the program, the leadership of the last 3 years, and asking the voters if that's the style of leadership that they're wanting at City Hall, and the voters have resoundingly said yes, and that just feels very, very great. It's testimony that we're doing the right thing at City Hall, and I just want to thank the people of Brampton for their continued confidence in the citizens' agenda, and they can count on that style of leadership continuing. We started a job 3 years ago, and we're going to finish it. We're going to do the right thing.
Growth in Brampton, traffic, big issues in your campaign, as well as the hospital, the new hospital in Brampton. What's first on the agenda?
Well, firstly on the agenda, I have a meeting with the new Minister Smitherman in 2 days' time, where we will be sitting down with the Minister and asking that our new hospital that was planned is not delayed, that it continues to open in the early part of 2006. The new Liberal government has said they're not married to the P3 formula. We will be asking for traditional funding. If that's what the citizens want, then this mayor is going to go after that straight to this government.
Let's talk growth now. That was one of the things you had in your debate, that you started your debate with Bill Cowie. Where do you stand now on that, on growth? How is Brampton going to develop over the next 3 years?
Well, Brampton's new growth management plan that was introduced by this past term of council in January 2003 has already made a difference, and now we have the tools to implement to ensure that growth is managed in a consistent way and properly. Tremendous pressures on the city of Brampton, but we will make sure we respect the needs of the voters and make sure that whatever applications come forward, if they don't have all of the if they're not consistent with what the citizens of Brampton have said are important before a subdivision goes ahead, then it just won't go ahead.
Okay. Any message for Bill Cowie or any other candidate that ran this term?
Well, I certainly want to congratulate those colleagues of mine who have been returned to council. I look forward to starting work tomorrow with my colleagues on council. We will have a smaller council. It's been tough for several colleagues challenging each other, but everyone worked hard, and people are to be congratulated all the way around. And at the end of the day, we are going to sit down tomorrow morning and start working together to do the right things, because that's what the citizens expect us to do, and that's my job as mayor, to make sure the job gets done. We will make it so.
Thank you. We're here
Thank
with,
you.
Mayor Fennell. Thank you. Congratulations again from Rogers Television, and we will be watching you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Back to you, Brian.
Thanks, Farah. Farah Nasser with Mayor Susan Fennell getting her words on what the next 3 years will hold for Brampton as far as her reign as mayor is concerned, suggesting that she will manage growth and respect the needs of the voters. One point that she made, and that also she started a job 3 years ago and she plans on finishing it. So positive statements coming from Mayor Susan Fennell in Brampton. We now have one final report for you, one final interview rather, from Mississauga, one councillor that we haven't really heard from much this evening in Ward 9, the incumbent having won again, a large victory for Pat Sato, and we now go to Akua Hines, who's standing by with Pat. Akua?
Thanks, Brian. I'm here in Mississauga with Ward 9 Councillor Patricia Sato. Pat, congratulations on leading the way tonight. Are you excited?
Thank you. I'm very excited, and my campaign crew has been very excited tonight. We're starting to wind down now. But I'm really pleased because we actually have almost the entire team in Ward 9 and in the riding here tonight. Sue McFadden is here, the public school trustee who was acclaimed. Bob Delaney, our MPP, is right behind me over here. And Esther O'Toole, who was also elected tonight as the separate school trustee. So we're really looking forward to working together as a team for Ward 9 and the extended riding with the provincial and federal. And Steve Mahoney left a little earlier. He was here too.
Now you're continuing as Councillor for Ward 9. Now, some of your issues have been helping calm traffic in Mississauga. Can you tell us about some of your plans on achieving that?
Well, I'm really hoping that in this term of office and as we go into the 2004 budget, that we'll be able to convince the other members of council who I understand have all been re-elected as well, plus our new councillor, Eve Adams, that the traffic calming program that we proposed through Safe Driving Committee last year is worth spending the money on, that it's a very valid program, and we should be introducing it in Mississauga. I feel very strongly about that.
When do you hope to get that introduced?
The 2004 budget, staff are reviewing it. It's going to require additional staff to look at it, but I think it's a very good program, and I'm going to be pushing it all the way.
You also have some staples you want to improve and encourage stable taxes. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I think we've had a really good record as the existing council on taxes. We had no increases for 10 years. After September 11th, of course, our interest on our investments dropped, and we did have to increase taxes slightly for the last year. But I've never promised no tax increase. We've been able to do it. But as far as I'm concerned, if we can keep taxes at a stable level and continue to offer the level of service and improve services, then I think we're doing a good job.
Well, congratulations to you, Pat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I am at Mill Creek Drive with Pat Zato, Councillor for Ward 9 in Mississauga. Back to you at the desk.
Thank you, Akua. Akua Hines with Pat Zato, Ward 9, councillor in Mississauga, having been re-elected. We thank you for your report. We want to now wrap up. We thank all the reporters and the crew in the field in Brampton and in Mississauga for getting out and getting the stories as they happen this evening on Municipal Votes 2003. We couldn't have done it without you, as well Sangeeta Iyer at Mississauga City Hall and Bob May bringing in the reports from Brampton. Much appreciated. Farah Nasser on Live Eye, and of course all the supporting crew this evening that worked very hard, the volunteers here at Rogers Television. This show would not be possible without them, and of course the staff. And I would like to especially thank the two guests this evening that were here on the desk with me. One of them no longer here, Brad Butt. We thanked him earlier, and Maria Brito for your spectacular insight. We couldn't have done it without you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Maria. So for all of us here at Rogers Television, on behalf of the director, Todd Collison, I'm Brian Coughlin. We thank you for joining us here on Municipal Votes 2003. Good night.